That was a very interesting preamble. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. Good friend and ally, Alan Lazarus, in the room. And we have a very super special guest today. So this is the screw up number one. Is it Murr or
Murr?
That's what I said.
Murr.
Danielle Murr of the Hill Man Morning Show on WAAF. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We are absolutely amazing.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing. This is honestly a dream come true.
It is.
And we're about to smash it.
I love it.
So we always have there's always a cool little story of how we end up having guests on the show, how the idea originates and how that thought and idea actually becomes fruition, actually happens. So one day Alan was like, you know who we should have on the show? We should have, WAAF? And I was like, I've been listening to longer than you for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's his first comment. Yeah,
he was
longer
like,
than you for sure. One upper.
We should have Danielle on.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And then now here we are.
Yeah.
So how did that actually happen?
So I saw her on Instagram. So I've been listening to the show for a very long time. The Hill
Not
Man
as long
Morning
as Kevin,
Show.
though.
Not yeah, exactly. Which he needs to make very clear.
I want people to know.
He's like, yeah. I was like, oh, this is a big rep. Like, this is going to be a great interview. He's like, oh, I know Danielle. It's like, we're like best friends.
We're like this.
I've known her for years.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so I saw a post on Instagram that you put up of a book that I was reading by Dan Heath. It was called Switch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, great book.
Right?
Excellent book.
I love how it talks about the elephant, the rider, and the trail.
Yep.
The elephant is your emotional well-being. The rider is your rationality, and the trail is like your strategy. And we can go into some of that. But I commented on that and liked it, and then I decided to DM you to tell you that I was a huge fan, basically, which was awesome. And then we started talking. We wanted to get coffee. We didn't end up getting coffee. Life got in the way, all this stuff. And then nearly probably 8 months later, here you are.
Yeah, here I am.
So this is a huge dream come true, and I have a little story. I worked in corporate America after going to WPI. I worked for a company called Sensata Technologies.
Okay.
And after that, I was very miserable. I was taking my health for granted. I was very focused on wealth creation back then. And I had a little bit of a drinking problem after college. You're in college, you get in the habit of drinking a lot, partying a lot, then you get out of college, and suddenly it's like, this probably isn't the best thing for my long-term health. So I remember being very, for lack of better phrasing, depressed, and I would drink basically every night pretty much at this point. And I remember I would listen to the Hill Man Morning Show on my way to work. And I remember thinking to myself, like, you inspired me.
Thank you.
So much. And I think that all of us in our darkest times have someone who helps pull us out.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I remember I would park my car, I lived in this, I was going to work at Sensata Technologies. They had this big complex that used to be Texas Instruments. And I would park my car and nap because I was napping a hangover during work hours. This was just a terrible time in my life, honestly. And I would listen to the Hill Man Morning Show because I think it's like 9 a.m. at this point, and you guys are still on. And I remember sitting there and being so inspired, and I thought to myself, like, I want to meet her one day. This was in 2013.
Wow.
And it's happening.
Right.
See?
It's literally
Here we are.
happening, and here we are.
I love it.
And I remember thinking to myself, what would it be like to become valuable enough to meet someone like that who holds herself to such a high standard? And we are here now, and dreams do come true.
Dreams come true.
Yep.
But you have to stay the fucking course.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Right? So
Can't get swayed.
So this fell through. We were supposed to do this a couple weeks ago. Life got in the way. You were getting renovations done.
Yep.
If we said, you know what, that's fine. Like, we understand. Like, things come up, which we did.
Yeah.
But shit, we want you. Like, we want this to happen. We're going to do whatever it takes. We'll drive out to you. We'll drive wherever.
Yep.
It's just part of, nothing can stop you from doing what you want to do. And that's the only excuse is you allow your circumstances to dictate. If you don't do what you want to do, it's because you allowed your circumstances to overwhelm your motivation or your drive or your vision.
Yep.
You let the excuses get in the way.
Right.
Which people often do, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you have any experience with that? Because we were talking about like just the 5-second rule and how you count back from 5 and then go back to bed. But obviously it's a joke.
Seriously, yeah.
But
literally Mel Robbins would be so upset with me.
Yeah.
If you haven't read the 5-second rule, it's really an excellent book, and it's an excellent premise on basically just creating meaningful action in your life and just getting yourself to do, the whole premise is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. And then when you move, it tricks your brain out of that, to get out of that pattern that you get stuck in. But for me, unfortunately, the snooze button in my head is much greater than Mel Robbins, as much as I adore her. So, my whole life has been built on procrastination, excuses, not following through.
Interesting.
And there are a lot of different reasons why. I think one of the biggest ones, especially I'd say in the last 10 years, and this pertains to starting projects and taking the initiative on things, is because I'm a perfectionist. And instead of starting something, which really this is the way to go, crash the plane a few times.
Yeah,
and
oh,
then
yeah.
you learn how to do whatever it is you're doing. So whether it's starting a podcast, learning to cook, learning a new hobby, learning a language, you're not going to be great at first.
No.
And I think everybody understands that. But when you have certain mindsets, you're like, okay, well, I want it to be as good as it can. So I'm not just going to start a podcast with a dinky little microphone and my laptop that I have.
Yeah.
I'm going to go order 4 different professional microphones, get a whole lighting setup, get a fancy camera, get this, the best of the software. And then you're so overwhelmed by like, okay, I don't know how to use any of this stuff yet.
Yep.
Okay, now I need to learn. And instead of just making a meaningful path for yourself and saying, okay, I'm going to schedule 30 minutes a day for myself to just say, this is the time when I shut the phone off and I mark myself as busy, where I'm just going to take an online YouTube lesson on how to use this software, or how to set up this microphone, or how to saute this vegetable, whatever it is you're trying to learn. And I'm like, well, never mind.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you just get so overwhelmed by it. And that applies to everything in life.
Everything.
Everything can be broken down to a series of actionable building steps. But I think people don't look at whatever issue it is they're having to try to break it down to a very small building block. If you start to tackle a few little things, then you build up to the bigger things. And I
Build
think,
self-esteem.
yeah. And I think people inherently realize that. I think it's just putting that into action and actually saying, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm a big believer in writing things down. If you write it down, it helps it materialize. It helps manifest it. It puts it out to the world, and it puts it, that's what it is. Instead of just being like, well, you could type it in your phone in your to-do list, and you could put it in your head. When you put the pen to paper, it's like, okay, well, now I got to do this.
Right. You have to live that down. It's so, I wrote on the way here, the fact that you just said all of that is
Right?
basically what I wrote. So I'm just good. I'm good.
Yeah. See ya.
One thing that I know I used to do, I know a lot of people do, people define themselves by their failures.
Sure.
So, like you just said, if you were to categorize yourself, you might say, I'm the type of person who starts something and doesn't finishes it.
Right.
Because you've done that repeatedly.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that's who you are. You just haven't
That's
taken
just your
the
habit.
next step yet.
It's just a habit.
Yeah.
One of my ex-girlfriend's moms, and I'm very close with my ex-girlfriend, Amanda. She's a great person. Her mom is a writer. She's a health teacher. She taught us.
Author, yeah.
I knew that condoms were made of latex. Nobody else in the class did. I take that with me forever. But one of her quotes is, you are so, this might not be the exact quote. I might be paraphrasing. But along the lines of, you are so much more than the sum of your failures.
Yeah.
That's just, if you put yourself in a box based on what you've done, you're just going to continue to get what you've done.
Exactly.
What you've gotten.
Yeah. She had that up on her fridge.
On her fridge. I saw that every day,
day.
for 3 years.
That's so
every
huge.
single
People
day.
think it's just a quote. No, it's a way of action. It's a way to live.
Right.
It's a habit. Yeah.
Right.
And when those are your thoughts and you intellectualize that and eventually start acting on it, it becomes natural. It's crazy to say, you say writing things down is so important. I write down every day my purpose, critical numbers, number of podcasts, number of workout session collaborations, my critical numbers, my weight, my bank account balance, all those things. I wrote down at one point in one of my old journals, they're all stacked up on my
You
desk.
take it
I'm doing
fucking
some
easy
reflection
on this table.
Oh, I'm
sir.
sorry. The table's a little wobbly.
Yeah, I've moved so many times that in the course of moving I've had this table for about 5 years now, and in the course of moving, I've lost the little bolts that go on the screws that hold the tabletop in
understandable.
9 million times. And of course, I've purchased them at Home Depot, but in the course of not getting organized, which is another thing on my ever-growing to-do list of life, I'm like, okay, this is where I have to put all these little things away and get rid of the stuff I don't need, keep the stuff I need. And I'm like, I know those extra bolts are in this house somewhere.
Yep.
I have no
That's
clue
how
where
the
they are.
traveling podcast, something breaks every time. And I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Fix that. Sorry I interrupted you. But
Oh, no worries.
Get back to where you were.
I actually wrote down in one of my journals, I have a must-do task that I write every day, and one of them was to message you, to reach out to you. It was actually when my dog passed away.
Yes.
And I reached out to you because I know you're an animal lover.
Huge.
And I needed someone who also could feel my pain, because I know
Absolutely.
you've lost a lot of animals and
Yeah.
pets in the past. And I was at a really low. So again, you've pulled me out of two really dark places
I'm
now.
glad I could
Right?
help.
Yeah, and I think that what's huge for the listeners is you could be that for someone else. You
Right.
are that for someone else.
Right.
Right.
So you owe it to them and yourself to be at your best, because you're going to inspire someone else that you didn't know. You didn't even know me.
Right.
You didn't know
Not
that you
even a little
changed
bit.
my life.
Right.
But you did
Which is
by
huge.
being you. You know, and then you label yourself as like you procrastinate and stuff. It's like you inspired me so much. And like, I think it's important for people to see that you're so honest with yourself about your own shortcomings so that, so that they don't put you on a pedestal and realize that they can do these things too.
Because you're a local celebrity.
Yeah, for sure.
And this is
Boston?
something that represent. This is something that we've kind of like come to terms with, that nobody has it all figured out.
No, not
matter
even a little.
where you are.
Yeah.
But a lot of people aren't willing to admit that.
No.
Yeah.
And you are.
Yeah.
Which is huge, because that you're just a person.
Right.
You're well known and you have a reach because you're where you are, but at the end of the day, you lay down with thoughts the same way everybody else does.
Yeah.
So that's why it's super important to share how we feel, because the way you feel might be the same way I felt, or maybe I've never felt that way, and now I'm going to know how it feels because you helped me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's huge.
I had a thing that I wrote down in my journal before coming here about celebrities and how you've met a lot of celebrities and you are a local celebrity really when it comes to Boston. I think that we polarize celebrities in the sense of like we either demonize or we put them on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And what Kevin and I have found in meeting so many amazing dream-chasing, mission-oriented people is that it's one of those two typically. For us, it's putting people on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And like from the moment we walked in this house, you're just a very real person.
Right.
I am, and I think that's something that I think it comes across to a degree on the radio, because people have to remember, you know, even though myself, Greg, LB, Mike Shue, anyone else involved in the show or any other show on radio, we're all ourselves, and I think that's what's unique about our show is we are pretty true to who we are as
For
people.
sure,
Like,
for sure.
we don't get off the air and you're like, oh, they're totally different.
Right.
Yeah.
But there also is a level of entertainment to the show. So, for instance, you know, I have a certain persona on the show and I say certain things. You know, a lot of that does hold true to me, but there's a lot of stuff that we will say for entertainment purposes.
It's the context of the room as
Right.
well. Yep.
And it's also to get people to engage. So, yeah, spoiler alert, I don't necessarily believe in every single thing I might say on the radio, but it's really boring if everyone in the room agrees.
Right.
So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to come up with a competing viewpoint, or at least
Play
entertain.
devil's advocate.
Right,
Exactly.
entertain
to
the other
keep
side.
the conversation going and to make
Right.
it juicy.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, so we have jokes about everyone's personalities, and you know, of course, we joke about me and the dogs and relationships and being 40 and you know, wanting to have kids and a family and everything like that. But you know, if you talk to people that truly know me, I am very candid about my own shortcomings.
Clearly.
And I am,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, I'll be very candid about my successes too and my strong points, and not in a cocky, obnoxious way like Ellen.
Yes.
There's the teaser clip right there.
I butter her up. She knocks me down. I get it.
12 minutes and 50 seconds in, the teaser
There it
clip
is,
was
mark
born.
it.
Everyone who listens to this show knows that I struggle with ego, so we're good. Danielle knows that too. This is good.
I do, so I kid. But, you know, I'm not afraid to say, you know, if you're going to tell me, oh, you're this or you're that, you know, I might fight back on the radio. But in real life, I'm like, yeah, oh, I know that.
Right.
I know that that's something I need to work on. And
Yep.
I think a lot of that goes back many years ago. This is probably the early aughts, so like 2000, 2001. I had dated a guy, and he was a couple years older than me, but for someone in his like, I don't know, early 20s, was very self-aware. And, you know, he went to therapy every week, not for anything specific, just to better himself. He was always about bettering himself.
Wow.
He was really smart and just a really progressive thinker. And one of the things we always kind of fought about is he's like, you have no self-awareness. You don't know who you are. And, you know, I'm in my early 20s. I'm trying to impress everybody. I'm trying to do things. I would go to the opening of an envelope if someone important was going to be there, you know, and just, I did a lot of, you know, it's like.
Were you working for WAAF at the time?
Not at the time. At the time what was I doing? I was working for Delta Airlines back then.
Okay.
And, you know, some people will say, there's that saying that says, you know, decide what you really want to do. It's either fuck yes or no.
Yes. So hell yes or no.
Hell yes
I
or
love
no.
that.
No,
Right.
No, I like fuck
She
yes.
reads a lot of the books I read. I can tell. I love it. Kevin's like, I gotta read.
I know. That's one of my shortcomings.
Yeah.
Amen.
I need to read more.
Yep.
Audiobooks.
Audiobooks.
There you go.
Yes.
That's what I've been doing.
Yes.
But that was, for much of my life, I had a really hard time saying no to people. And I still do. It's still something I struggle with because by nature, I'm a helpful person.
Yep.
And I don't like to let people down.
Yep.
But there's this expectation where, you know, people ask you to do something and you're like, oh, okay, now I have to rearrange my whole life. And it's just, you can easily come back and say, you know what, that doesn't work for me, but how about we try this instead? And you can reframe it.
Yep.
But back then, going back to that point, I didn't have any self-awareness. And, I would look to impress people, and I didn't engage in the things that I love to do. Like right now, I like quiet. I don't mind going out, but I don't mind going out to eat by myself. I don't mind sitting down and reading a book. Yep. I like quiet. I like to put my noise-canceling headphones on and throw on like a Tony Robbins video from YouTube from like 20 years ago.
Yes.
I know you love that. I know you love Tony.
Yes.
Everybody who loves Tony, say aye.
Aye. Yeah, right. Yes.
So, but I'm more comfortable expressing that because before somebody would be like, oh, can you come out for, this thing?
Yep.
And it would be just a stupid thing that I really didn't need to be at, that I didn't want to be at, that was going to take up half my day.
Yep.
But I would do it, and then the other person wouldn't even show up. And I'd be like, well, now I wasted half a day.
Yep.
Now, I'm at a point where I know, to my friends, like if they need me to be at something, I'm like, okay, that's something that's really going to make a difference for them if I'm there. So I'm happy to show up and support them. But if it's just like, hey, we're meeting up at this place, it's like 50 minutes away from here.
Right.
And I'm like, let's pick another time where you and I can make alternate plans instead of my having to do this thing that I know I'm going to be miserable at.
Yeah.
There are certain things you go to because it's worth it for the other person. You suck it up and you be miserable and then you come home and you're like, I can't believe I had to do that.
Yeah.
But over the years, I've learned that and I've gotten that self-awareness. And now I look back and I'm like, man, he was right. I didn't have any self-awareness back then. And I certainly didn't have the wherewithal to be who I was and be comfortable with that. I think that's one of the biggest things is people know who they are deep down, but they're afraid of being judged. And I struggle with that tremendously, like on the air, on social media, just like, what are people going to think? What are people going to think if I say this? And the unfortunate thing is sometimes our segments are short and sweet and you get to a certain point. I don't have the time to expand on something. So I might say something.
Oh, yeah. And out of context, it'll seem like something.
I sound like an asshole.
I know. Yep.
Like if the person just tuned in, and we see this on the text line a lot. People will have just tuned in after 10 minutes of discussion.
Right.
One of us will say one thing and they're like, well, you're such an ignorant jerk. And I'm like, no, you missed the whole surrounding conversation that explains why that
might have been your last thought.
There.
It's sound bites. And we have podcast teaser clips that we put on Instagram. And you got some hate recently.
I want to ask you about that too.
Okay.
And we will definitely. And I have literally written #FearNoJudgment on here. On the other page, and you just talked about that. So we're a lot of the things you're bringing up were already in here. So
I'm very intuitive.
Are you psych? Are you psych?
Very self-aware and intuitive. It wasn't always. But I think that's a huge thing because that was so out of context. And I even told Kevin I make those teaser clips, and they need to move you. And I think it was about I'm going to outwork everybody, and it's you doing deadlifts, and it's a whole thing. It is to pop, but it's hopefully you're going to listen to the full podcast and then take that clip and realize that what you were really trying to say is that I'm actually humble and that I work hard and I work as hard as I possibly can.
And some people won't. I am super comfortable saying I am ridiculously humble. I think I am one of the most humble people ever. I will help anybody, anytime. I would literally give you the shirt off my back, and it's not because I want to take my shirt off. That's just how I am.
That's what Alan would do.
Alan would definitely. You
well,
can have
it'd be
a
a win.
I just wear mine.
I said it'll be a win-win. I get to be shirtless. You get a shirt.
Right.
Perfect.
Everybody
wins. It's
Ego,
integration.
you got to watch out.
I developed my force field before you guys came here, so I'm good. I'm immune.
When she saw us.
I have spiritual practices on here too. We will get into what she just meant by
sure.
force field because I know that's more to that than what she just said.
Yes.
How do you deal? So I remember I was listening, and you did like Aunt Kathy.
Yes.
The Aunt Kathy saying,
I did, yes,
and
I
you
did
got
Aunt
so
Kathy.
much hate from that.
Yeah.
Like I remember you were reading the text, like it was basically people saying like that is the worst thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah.
I tuned in the next day, you're doing it again. So it's like, is that a fuck you guys? This is what I want to do. How do you get to the point where you're just like, look, this is me.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. Say what you want to say.
Yeah.
But it's not going to affect me. It's not going to stop me from being me.
Right.
How do you get there?
I think it's just being mindful and kind of so one of the biggest things about our job, and especially the text line that my boss Ron Valeri has instilled in us, is we'll say something like, oh well, a lot of texters said X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
And he'll say, that's the vocal minority, and that really does ring true because you think about things like Yelp.
Oh, I know.
Facebook reviews.
Yep.
Really, people don't take the time to say, hey, job well done.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a letter to your boss, or I'm going to
know.
leave a positive review.
Yeah.
People go someplace when they want to bitch and they want to take somebody down.
Most of the time, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with that. Like,
So
we'll
you're
see that people will text in and be like, you guys suck. That was the dumbest thing you've ever done. But then I'll go on Twitter and there will be 50 people like, oh my God, I'm dying laughing. That's exactly what my Aunt Brenda sounds like. Or
Right.
my Aunt, Trish or whomever. And, people will message me on Facebook and be like, hey, I know you get some bad comments, but I just want to tell you, anyone who said that accent sucked clearly doesn't have any relatives here in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So you just have to kind of see that there's like this little nucleus of hate and negativity, but there's a bigger cellular bubble of
wonderful
appreciation
things.
where
Yeah.
people are like,
Fuck yeah.
oh, because
This is great.
If I heard something on the radio or saw a show or heard something that resonated with me, I'd be like, that's awesome,
Yeah.
and I'd laugh to myself and I'd go about my day. People like to bring other people down and they like to throw that negativity out there, and it's just a matter of, and it's taken me a long time to get here, and I still have work to do on that. There
For
are
sure.
still times when people will say something and I'm like, oh, I suck.
Yeah.
But then, I'll talk to the people that are close to me and my friends and my loved ones and my trusted, work colleagues.
You don't suck.
And they're like,
You're
dude,
awesome.
you're amazing.
Yeah.
Like LB's
Literally
so great with that.
amazing.
We'll for as much as we fight on the radio, LB is like my awesome.
What's up,
really-
Kat?
Oh yeah.
my like
Yeah.
crazy drunk
Yeah.
brother.
Not for nothing.
Not for nothing.
Not for nothing, kid.
Yeah.
But like, if we fight, if anything everybody in the room is so great about that. If somebody says something negative and they try to take me down in the air, we'll go to commercial and he's like, hey, you're awesome. Don't whatever.
20 Guest Street. Kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hillman
Shout
will
out
do
to
the
LB.
same thing. He'll be like, that was great. You did a great job today.
Yeah.
Shu will give me the wink and be like, hey, baby, you're great.
Love it.
So
And that's
everybody's
great.
really supportive in that vein,
Yeah.
which is, it's a nice work environment to have. Because, we're not all best friends hanging out with each other's kids on the weekends at like house parties, like in Goodfellas.
Yeah, yeah.
But, I think
Love
we
the
all have a
reference.
mutual respect and admiration for each other, and we have a great chemistry on the show. Whereas,
for sure.
You look at other shows and other stations,
Yep.
people are constantly talking crap about each other and
yeah.
fighting, and it's just this really, some people love to hear that, but after a while, it's kind of like, like I'm driving to work and I'm slamming on the brakes every 3 seconds on 128. I don't need to hear these
I know.
idiots bickering.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yep.
it's all in what you make of it, I guess.
I love the show.
Yeah, I
I'm
do
glad.
too. I do too. You're LB. You're the LB of this show because you know how LB's
Not
like,
for nothing.
real quick.
Yeah.
Quick story.
Yeah.
And it's a 45-minute
Yeah.
story. That's what Alan is.
You're like, that's literally today's podcast.
Right.
Is that one story?
Yeah,
from
That's
Alan.
exactly how Alan is.
You know it.
You gotta reel him in sometimes.
So I always say give credit where it's due. You inspired me. I reached out to you to try to build you up and let you know that you changed my life.
Which is huge.
Which is huge
Yeah.
because that balances out some of the negativity that
Yeah.
you're going to get. I always hear people praising people, but not to the person.
Right. Yeah,
Always.
You're right.
And I'm like, what if this person... What I've found is that, especially if you're in the fitness industry and people perceive you as having it all,
Yeah.
sometimes I used to say this. I used to say that the prettiest girl in the room is actually the most lonely in a lot of ways. And because no one thinks that they need to be built up.
Right.
Right.
But when they're not getting any feedback, any praise, because everyone thinks they don't need it, they're actually only going to get the criticisms, especially if they're improvement oriented. I just think it's so important. If you're going to praise, I have friends that I guarantee you talk my praises behind my back. And you may think that and we joke like I have an ego and all that stuff, but there are times where I'm like really down on myself.
course.
Just because you think I should feel good about me
Right.
doesn't mean
Right.
I do. And there's no downside to giving praise.
Yeah.
Especially if it's genuine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to reach out to you on Instagram and say you're amazing if I don't think that.
Well, it's
Right.
like this.
But I
though.
do think that. I just need you. If you don't feel it and
Right.
I don't express it,
Yeah.
then you never feel it. I could have made your day.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And you did.
and
You
this
did
wouldn't-
100%.
I love it.
That is awesome. When you go to dinner,
Yeah.
you don't leave a positive review because that's your expectation. The food should be good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
you're right.
why.
You're right.
So if the chef came out and you said, "Hey, chef, that was the best meal I've ever had,"
Right?
Yeah.
He probably doesn't get that often.
No,
He
no.
probably gets the fish was cold or
Right.
whatever,
Oh,
whatever
for
it
sure.
is.
Or
you
this
know?
was
I want my
overcooked
money
or-
back
yeah.
or whatever. Because
Sometimes you should thank people for
what is expected.
reaching your level of expectation,
Right.
especially if you have a high level of expectation.
Right.
So I always say
Fuck.
have a ridiculously high expectation of yourself, but a low expectation of others, because then you'll always appreciate others.
Right.
Right.
And you're a Tony Robbins fan, obviously, which is awesome. He's on the background of my phone, which is recording right now.
Yes.
And I think that's probably why we resonated together so well, because my favorite quote of all time is trade your expectation in for appreciation, and your whole life becomes a miracle.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, our happiness is in here.
Right.
Right.
It's what we think about us. It doesn't matter what someone says on social media. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. At the end of the day, if you are letting that affect you, it's because you value what they think of you more than what you think of you.
Yeah.
You are what you think you are.
Yeah.
Right.
We say that all the time.
Yeah.
If
Regardless
you're-
of the circumstance.
Regardless of the if you're the CEO of a company and you want to be a professional bass fisherman, be a professional bass fisherman.
Yeah,
That's
right.
what
That's
if that's
your thing.
what you feel.
Yeah.
You know, like that's why so many people are conflicted.
Yeah.
So many people, because if you're the CEO, who thinks you're successful, you drive a Porsche, you have a nice house,
Oh, yeah.
you're gonna quit all of that to go throw a worm in the fucking pond?
Yeah, because you love it.
Yeah.
Because you love it.
And you
It makes
should.
you happy and you're good at it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think self-development is also something that people don't engage enough in because they view it as being selfish because other people put that expectation on them. So like, you know, if you're going to the gym, if you're taking good care of yourself, if you're eating healthy, people like to shit on that, right? Because they're like, oh, well, oh, look at you. Oh, you're so, oh, look at me. I'm in the gym. Oh, great, good for you. And it's like,
Yeah. Another selfie.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. And it brings people up. And that's another thing I struggle with is making priorities for my stuff and either doing things that I want to do. Like, for instance, I'm a huge gardener. I love to garden. So
Love it.
just got this set up in my house where I can have a dedicated room for my seedlings because I like to start, I do a lot of heirloom variety vegetables, which you can't really find at nurseries and Home Depot. So I start a lot of my stuff from seed. You know, I buy the potting soil, I have all the supplies, I got everything to go. And I love doing it. It's very cathartic for me to just sit there and like set up all the cells, push these little put the little seeds in, grow them, put them under the light, and then be able to transfer
Do you
them
talk to
into
them?
my yard. I do.
Yeah,
You
good.
have to. The
Interesting.
positive.
Oh, yeah, positive
Bring
vibes.
them up. You know,
Absolutely.
sing to them a little Pavarotti, maybe. You
Love
know,
it.
Amazing Grace.
Yeah. Yeah.
But every year, I find myself up against the proverbial clock, as we like to say on the show, because I don't make it a priority because somebody else will have something going on or I'll have something else that needs to get done.
For
and
sure.
I'm like, I have to get my seeds started.
The
And they're
squeaky
like,
wheel
it's
gets
just-
the grease.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, it's just gardening. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I can put it off. And then it
What if
waits
it's
for
important
weeks.
to you?
That's the thing is I need to put my foot down more about, yes, I need to carve this time out and I don't need to take time away from something that you feel is not essential because it's essential to me and my mental well-being and my happiness because then all these little plants come up and then I have great vegetables and healthy food for myself all spring and summer.
See how she just lit up talking about it?
Yeah. Right.
It fills you up.
It
And if
does.
you're empty, you're going to have nothing to give.
Right.
For me and you, it's the gym. Like, I have to go because it fills me up.
Yeah.
I need that. Otherwise, I'm
I
not
have
going to
that problem. I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to get
We
there.
will. We'll get you there. We'll get you there. For,
For
sure.
sure. We'll come work out with you any given time.
Anytime
Excellent.
you want.
Excellent.
We'll teach you everything we
Thank
know,
you.
for sure. So I wrote on here, what's your favorite form of self-expression other than audio, like radio? One of them is gardening.
Yep.
I know you're big into cooking
Yep.
as well. Because I think that what I always say is design a life around things that fill you up, which is whatever ways you can express yourself. For you, it's writing little raps, podcasting,
boxing.
boxing, fitness, all that kind of stuff. So for you, what are your main forms of self-expression? Because I want to inspire others to have more of them.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, in turn, by you asking me, it will inspire me to stay the course with that. Because
love
writing is huge for me. I love to write, and I'm very good at writing.
Yes.
I'm very good at writing prose. I'm very good at writing experiences. You know, we joke about on the show that like I'm a grammar Nazi or a grammar police, whatever. But I feel that I have a very strong grasp of language and being
And
able
vocabulary
to
is on point.
Right.
What did you
for
say?
sure.
cathartic.
Cathartic? I'm literally going to look that up. I have dictionary.com on my homepage on my phone.
Excellent.
Yeah, so your vocabulary is next level.
Thank you.
Yep.
And you know, people will crap on that sometimes. They're like, "Oh, what do you think? You're smarter than me?"
Right.
And it's like, "What? It's not about my being smarter than you. It's just that's how I
Important.
speak."
Yeah.
There are plenty of times where I can't think of a word, or I fumble over my words, or stumble, or whatever it is, and I'm like, oh, you know, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
But
At 3 a.m.
right,
Yeah,
right.
when you're up, yeah.
But given the right environment, you know, I could. It's kind of like the joke that like I can turn it off and turn it on because my mother always yells at me and says like, "Oh, you got to be a little bit more ladylike," and you know, because I delve into the radio and the Boston accent.
Oh,
and the,
yeah, for
You
sure.
know, the kind of crude whatever.
Yeah.
But if I need to, I can turn it on and put the evening gown on, so to speak, and speak, you know, whatever.
The best of both worlds, some would say.
Yeah, some would
Right.
say.
Yes. So for me, I really want to focus on writing, whether it's a short story or doing a blog post or something like that. That it allows me to express things that are important to me and like what's in my head and getting that kind of stuff out there. And then cooking is huge for me. I grew up in this very kitchen that we're sitting in right now, although it looked a lot different back then, but with my grandparents. My grandfather lived in Maine, but he was stationed overseas during the war. He met my grandmother in Italy. She was his secretary. And then he married her and brought her back here, and they developed a life. So I had two very super authentic Italian cooks.
Love it.
My mom was a single mom. God bless her. She worked full time to provide for us. And my grandparents watched me most of the time. Yep. So I grew up with them in the kitchen. I mean, granted, they were screaming at each other in Italian. I had no idea what the hell was going on. But that's where I really learned that craft from them. And I like being self-taught. I like going online and challenging myself to be like, okay, what can I learn now? Like Flour Bakery in Boston does these classes for all sorts of different things. So I'm taking a croissant class in 2 weeks, which I'm psyched about.
Nice.
You get to learn
awesome.
to, laminate dough and proofing and all that stuff. And, I could go buy a croissant.
Yeah.
Or I could go look it up on the thing. But I'm like, oh, this will be a fun hands-on thing.
Love it.
I love learning and knowledge. Like I would love to be able to go back and get a master's in chemistry just because I like chemistry.
Yes.
And there's unfortunately no place around here really has it other than for teaching purposes. Excuse me. But there's nothing wrong with educating yourself. And sometimes I feel like people frown upon that because they're like, oh, why would you even do that? What are you going to use it for? Who cares?
Right.
Who cares what you're going to use it for? Like
knowledge
if you
is cumulative
enjoy it-
anyway.
Right.
It all is connected. And when you get enough of those knowledge bites
Yeah.
and you connect the dots, you see the world in a whole new way.
Right.
And those dots connected because you self-educated. This is amazing.
We
Yeah,
were
keep
talking
going.
about this the other day. Like, so I love to box.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken a couple lessons, but like I'm self-taught.
Okay.
I'm just self-taught. And I've had people come up to me and say, oh, where do you train?
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 10 years.
Right.
Like, I better know what I'm doing by
course.
now.
Yeah, right.
What we were saying.
I'd have to be terrible.
Right.
10 years at
Right.
anything, right?
Jesus.
Yeah.
But we were comparing me to like, so for somebody who's never trained and done it,
Yeah.
but has consistently stuck with it through the mud, if you put me next to Allen, I might look really good.
Oh,
If you
you
put me
definitely
next
would.
to Floyd Mayweather,
Yeah.
I'm going to look like a pile of shit.
Right. You're
He
gonna
will
be a huge
literally
tab.
kill me.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, most people, if they don't see a reason for it, I'm not going to be a professional fighter.
Right.
I don't want to be.
Right.
And people will say, well, why do you do all that training?
Because it
I
drives you and
fucking
you
enjoy
love
it.
it.
Yeah.
Right. And then I watch UFC and I know what's going on.
Right.
Like, it has literally, and this just came to me, this is a total revelation right now. It has literally increased the happiness in my life
So much.
tenfold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tenfold, because I enjoy watching fights more.
Right.
I feel more confident in myself. That's why I do it, because I fucking love it.
So I always go back to that quote, and you've heard me say this many times, the suppression of self-expression leads
Yeah.
to depression.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Yes.
And I think the number one reason why people suppress self-expression is fear of judgment.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I yesterday had the privilege to speak at the Boys and Girls Club. I had a little booth at a career fair to inspire
proud of you.
kids.
Yeah,
So proud
that
of
was
you.
Thank you.
awesome. I
Thank
love
you.
that you did that.
It was awesome. We talked about fitness and health and the big five, which I'll get into. But
Okay.
I got to see 8 years old all the way to 15. And it came in that order. So it was groups rotationally, right? And so I got to see the changes in the age groups. And I catered my presentation a little bit to each age group based on what was resonating with the kids. It was an epiphany for me. I realized two things. Number one, we grow exponentially. Like 8 years old, you're like this. It doubles from 8 to 15. You literally double in the amount of growth. It's crazy. You can see them like 3 inches, then 6 inches, then 10 inches. It's crazy. Not only that, but they got more and more afraid of what their peers think.
Yeah.
And less free as they got to, and I get that it's 14, 15, freshman in high school type of thing,
brutal.
which is, all of us, Jesus, we just go back to that. It's like
know.
horrible times.
When you were a little kid, you didn't care.
Yeah.
You didn't care if you...
When you were a little kid, nothing. There's no fear.
No, if you went up to like a door that was locked, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, I look like an idiot.
Yeah.
You'd be like, all right, let me try the next door. If you're trying a new sport or,
Right.
even they say that, teaching kids language in school is so important when they're younger because it's easier for them to absorb.
Yep.
And I struggle with terrible social anxiety. So for instance, if I come to your house, like I sent you guys a text earlier, like, hey, this is how my house looks.
Yeah.
Because the number is in cursive and it's hard to read it. If I'm going to somebody's house that I've never been to before, I've got to Google map it and virtually drive down the street, call them and be like, does your doorbell work? Because one of my biggest things is if I hit the doorbell and I don't hear it and then nobody comes to the door, I'm like, oh,
Yep.
Does the doorbell not work? Should I ring it again, or am I being a pain in the ass?
Yeah, do I call? Do I text? What do I do? Just sit here?
If I go meet someone at like a bar or a restaurant,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, where are you? They're like, we're in the bar. I'm like, but where? Like, are
Right.
you to the left of the door? Is there a restroom? Like, I have to go on the Instagram page to see what the restaurant looks like inside.
Yeah.
Because my fear is someone seeing me not knowing what I'm doing. And like, why should I even freaking
I
care?
share that with you so much,
a
though.
fear
I
of
do.
incompetence?
Yes.
Interesting.
And that's what I struggle with it going to the gym. Like I've followed
Most people do,
I've
yeah.
followed professional bodybuilding for years. I've read into
I could
everything.
tell.
I've
You knew
studied
front
everything.
double bicep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I mean I know all of this stuff. I have this stuff in my head, but when it comes to being practical, I'm worried that some moron's gonna walk by and be like, "You're doing that wrong." I'm like, "I'm doing it this way for a reason." Jackass.
Roll in with us. You're not going to get questioned
nobody's
at
gonna
all.
say anything.
There's no. I got questioned the whole first 2 years I was doing it. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
You're getting fat. All this stuff. Like you're gaining weight, 60 pounds in 6 months. Now no one questions me.
See?
They immediately they're like, yeah. They're like, what are you doing and why are you
Right,
doing
yeah.
it? Even though you made
Can you
fun of
tell
me
me?
the first 2 years.
Yeah. Now
But
they
I
wanna
do
know
resonate
why.
with that for sure. I'm the same way.
Fear of
Yeah.
incompetence.
Fear of incompetence.
You've gotten rid of a lot of that.
A lot of it, yeah. But
Yeah.
there's still time. Like I totally going into like if you said, "Yo, I'm at TGI Fridays."
Yeah.
Just for instance, I would say
Oh,
where.
yeah.
Where
Yeah.
are? Because I'm not
Where
going to walk
within the
around.
restaurant.
Yeah, I don't want to look like an idiot.
Yeah. And
That's-
you think about it, like when you have a friend come meet you, right? You're sitting there and you see them across the room. Like as soon as you get to catch their eye, you give them a wave. They come over. You don't think they're a moron because they can't see you
Right,
across a room
right.
full of people.
Oh, of course not.
But when you have that kind of interior struggle, you're like, I've gotten ready and driven to places like an hour away for like a party or an event, and like gone to like a venue, like a restaurant or like a club, whatever it might be, and like literally like looked in from the front door and been like, these people aren't answering. And this is maybe like even before like texting was a thing, like before we had like solid cell phones.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I've left. Because I was afraid that as something as stupid as walking into a restaurant and looking through the room to see where my friends were, I've
Right.
actually left. And sometimes people can't wrap their head around it. They're like, what's the big deal? Like making phone calls, calling to order a pizza, calling
Right.
my doctor's office to reschedule an appointment, calling to schedule like
You
a
are
chimney
me.
sweep.
You
It's-
and I are the same person.
It's horrible. I'll be
Yeah.
like,
You also both grew up
can
with
you
single
call-
parents and raised by your grandparents.
No.
I was going to say that.
Fascinating.
Yeah. But see, this is interesting because I want to ask you a question I asked Alan, and I want to see how you answer it. When you walk into a bar,
Yeah.
what are your first thoughts? Oh, and I'm assuming your thoughts all day
Right.
and driving to the bar are
Yeah.
the thoughts that I'm having.
Right.
But when you walk in and you get that energy, that
Yeah.
I'm here now, right? Time to set myself.
Right.
What are you thinking?
I got to run out the door. Nobody can see me.
Right. That's what I think. I think like, how am I going to get overlooked? Like,
Right.
what does Alan look like?
Right.
I get Alan next to me. He's 7 inches taller than me, a stud. My other best friend, Matt, is a stud, 6'1".
Yeah.
I just hang out with tall people.
Yeah.
And I'm short. Like, that's always been something for me. You know
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
Always been something.
So the opposite of self-conscious is others conscious. And
Interesting.
to me, the biggest way to overcome anxiety is to get outside yourself.
Right.
And when he asked me that question, I said, Kevin, I'm not thinking of myself.
Right.
Right.
I was like, what does that even mean?
I don't understand that. Like,
How
I
is
can't
that a
laugh.
thing?
And by
Yeah.
the way, that's the most attractive to people, both guys
Right.
and girls,
Yeah.
especially girls in the bar
that's
scene.
what I aspire.
They are going
Yeah.
for the
Aspire to
person
be
who's
that.
the least self-conscious.
Right.
The person who is the most congruent will always influence everyone else. And the person who's most congruent has a true north, knows why they're here and what they're doing. And when you going back to like before, when it's like, I don't know why I'm doing this, why am I going out of my way, like all this stuff, that's all lack of congruency.
Yeah.
When you know, like coming here to do this podcast is so damn important to me that I know I'm going to be congruent.
Yeah.
This
Literally
is-
do
this
anything
is the
to get it
mission.
done.
Right.
Yeah, this
Literally
is the mission.
anything.
So I'm going to have a lot of influence because of that. And it's all subconscious. Yeah.
Alan's
Huge.
a wizard.
Well, thank you, brother.
Need to get you like a big, tall, pointy hat. Not
Like
like a
Gandalf.
KKK way, and like a
Oh,
you know, an age way, like in a video game way. I gotta
Both
clarify
of our eyes
that.
were like, what did you just say? That?
I was like, hold on, everybody
the
froze.
wisest
Let me
wizard.
clarify.
Albus,
See, that's
Albus
the beauty.
Dumbledore.
The beauty of this is we just can say whatever we want. That's the beauty of like having your own thing.
I like that you guys are on air telling people that you fear judgment and that you've struggled with anxiety. And
Oh, yeah.
I think that it's really important for people to realize that people like you both, who are public figures, are also struggling with these same types of things.
Everybody's human.
Yeah.
Literally everybody lies down at night with their thoughts,
Yeah.
whatever their thoughts
Yeah.
are. Somebody has the same thoughts you do. Somebody has the same thoughts you do. Somebody has the same. We have very similar thoughts. We connected on that.
So I don't think that you guys are anxious people or ever were. I think you had a habit of thinking in a way that made you anxious.
Probably,
You were thinking that you were overwhelming yourself.
Yeah. It's like how you mentioned procrastination in one of your other podcast episodes. You're not a procrastinator. You have the habit of procrastinating.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yep. Because when you say you're going to do something and you don't follow through, your central nervous system remembers that.
Right.
Oh, I'm that person. I don't follow through.
Right.
And you just get in the habit of that.
That becomes your identity.
It becomes your identity.
So speaking of that, jumping from, I was talking to my good friend about this yesterday, and relationships, I know we're going to talk about relationships because we always do.
It's one of the 3 pillars.
Such an important part of life.
Arguably the most important.
It very well could be.
Yeah.
You'll hear a lot of people say, I just have trust issues. You do not have trust issues. You have issues with trusting people who are untrustworthy.
Right.
You go to the movies.
Or who were untrustworthy.
Yes.
Who were.
Yeah. Yeah.
You go to the movies and you see a bad movie. You don't say, I am never going to the movies again.
Right. You just had that bad experience
You
with that
had
movie.
one bad experience. You choose a different movie. It may be you take some time off, maybe.
You watch a preview next time.
And,
Yeah.
and you know what else you do?
Before you
Maybe-
buy the
maybe
shoes,
you-
try them on.
You
Right.
cater your interests.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't want to see somebody get their head cut off.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go see Titanic. I'm more about the love, whatever.
Yeah.
That's
I'll never let go, Jack.
people. I'll never draw me like one of your French girls. I think
Are you
that
sure there's not room for him on that raft?
there
It looks like
definitely
there
was.
is.
Everyone
They
says that.
fucking
Leo,
proved it.
I'm telling you, there wasn't room. She would have frozen to death.
They proved it.
They didn't prove it.
Mythbusters proved it.
They did
Yes.
it. They did a whole
Did
thing.
they really?
Yeah,
of
yeah
course
they
they
did a
did.
whole
And
thing.
those guys
That's
are
one of my
legit.
favorite movies of all time. Like,
It is
do
my
not,
favorite movie.
Yeah.
But
I will
regardless-
defend it till I
Regardless,
sink to the bottom of the
you
ocean.
can't just not go into that room because you had a bad experience in that room.
Before. As a matter of fact, that's why you have to go in.
Exactly.
To
Fear-
disprove that mindset
Yeah.
that you've now created.
They call it exposure therapy. They do that with horses. The Amish, they have horses, buggy, and all that still. And they literally, a horse that is automatically has instincts to run away from like Mack trucks. They'll literally tie them up next to, and I know you probably don't agree with this, next to highways, so
So
because
that they
of
get that.
the exposure therapy,
Yeah.
so that they won't freak out when
Right.
they hear a car and run in the direction and get hit,
Right.
and kill somebody.
It's like where I vacuum at my cats. I'm like, it's fine. You're not going to get sucked
Right.
up.
Yeah.
They're like, two of them are fine.
Yeah.
They have no problem with it. They're like, whatever. And they try to tap the vacuum and they roll their eyes at me. I'm like, oh, that's nice. Thanks. But, some other ones are like fearful. I'm like, here, you're not going to get sucked up.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Great. That'll be like the one teaser clip and be like, Danielle uses animals.
Yeah, literally though, right?
She says she loves animals. Does she really?
Does she really? Dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
Wait till you see what we found out.
Yeah, when podcasting goes too far.
How did you get into animals? Like, what was there like something that happened to you where you said, "Look, I don't ever want to see an animal like that again"? Because I
Speaking of
saw your snap
self-expression.
the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
That's-
you literally had a pair of gloves. There was a possum.
Yes.
Oh,
Bravo.
There was a possum that got hit by a car, and you checked to see if it had babies because if it had babies, you wanted them to survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did that come from like a one thing, or is that
The good-heartedness behind that is
Right.
like next level.
right? How do you not trust somebody who wants to do that?
Right?
And people freak out too. They're like, "Oh, that's so gross." And I'm like, that's why I bring gloves because I wouldn't want to see. And people say it's just a possum. Like, what's the big deal? To me, it's a living creature. Like, if it's a female and she has babies in her pouch, they're either going to get squished or they're going to starve to death or freeze to death, and that's a really shitty way to die.
For sure.
So even if you there are people that whose occupation and profession and dedication, and not even profession because
craft.
most of them are volunteers, but their whole thing is to rescue wildlife.
Right.
Yeah.
And people, they're like, well, it's a raccoon. Like, who cares? It's like, it's part of the whole
circle of life.
system.
Yeah.
There are other things that depend on that. And,
sure.
and I couldn't watch a living being just struggle and perish, but
I get so upset when I see roadkill. I saw a squirrel on the way here, dead
Oh,
on
it
the road.
sucks.
It literally
Yeah.
upsets me.
Yeah, it's strange.
Because
It's a strange thing.
we're killing. Like, I will, bunnies, I'll swerve. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be safe. I don't want to kill a person or anything
Sure.
and crash. But, like, I will do whatever it takes to not kill a roadkill.
yeah, and that's good.
Keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm even taking, I've done a lot of wildlife rehab in the past, but under the guidance of other people. So I'm actually taking a course. This is one thing that I've wanted to do for a couple of years that I finally just put my foot down and said I'm doing it.
Yes.
VCA in Weymouth has a course to prep you for the Certified Mass Wildlife Rehabbers Test. So you need to have certification with the state to be
Yep.
able to handle certain animals. There are a lot of federal guidelines as it pertains to wildlife.
Yep. And we talked about a charity you want to start as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was always something I wanted to do to become certified. So finally I said, no, you know what? I'm going to take the class. It's in Weymouth on Monday nights at 6:30. That it's like the furthest,
Ooh, God.
most horrible place for me to get to on a Monday night.
At the worst time.
Right.
But if it's important.
I'm like, this is so important to me, and it's like 10 weeks. Yep. So if I can just do that one time and get it out of the way and then be able to help more animals, that's great. But where this all started, you know, when I was maybe about 12 years old, the people that lived behind this house moved, and they left a cat, and they just left it outside. It's a tabby cat with white paws. I named her Cat. With a K.
Very original.
Yeah.
So she would
Classic,
come around the house,
classic.
and I would feed her every once in a while, much to my mother's chagrin. And finally, one day, she came to the house, and she came to the back door, and we were, our friend George was here doing some handyman stuff. And he opened the door, and she had a kitten in her mouth. She came in, put the kitten under my bed, ran back outside, got another kitten, and came back. She only had 2. And that was like my first experience with taking care. I mean, you know, I had hamsters growing up, but my mom never let me have like cats or dogs or anything like that because my family wasn't into pets. They weren't a pet family growing up, so they never really had that.
Interesting.
And I always loved animals. So then there were a couple of other strays that came around. Another one got pregnant. We, you know, took those kittens in, and it just kind of went from there. And I didn't really start getting involved in rescue until about 2010, where there's a cat shelter in Marblehead, and I started volunteering there. So I'd clean every other Thursday. I still have that shift 8 years later, where I go and cleans with my friend Amy, same person I got set up with there. We've had that same shift for 8 years, and we still, like, you know, Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas, depending on where the days fall, we're in there doing our thing. And I want to say probably in like 2011, Jane, who's the woman who heads up all the volunteers, had brought in this very tiny gray cat. And I was like, oh, that cat's so cute. Like, is it like a baby? And she's like, no, she's actually pregnant. That cat couldn't have been more than 9 months old. She was still a kitten herself. So she said, do you want to foster her? And I was like, oh, I get to watch babies being born in my house. This is amazing. Mm-hmm. So I took her in. She had 3 little babies. My best friend Kim actually wound up adopting 2 of the babies, and her mom took the other baby and the mom. So I still get to see them, which is great.
Awesome.
But it just kind of snowballed from there. And then I started in dog rescue. My friend Manda was involved with an organization called Last Hope Canine. So I started fostering with them. And then someone I know, Rachel, had posted this really old, decrepit-looking min pin mix. It was like 5 pounds that they were going to put down at a New York shelter. Yep. And I was like, I need to have this dog. His tongue was sticking out. He was a hot mess. Like, his abdomen was all swollen. We never even figured out why. So
is this the one that had surgery and that you asked for help about? Which I want to talk about as well. I love that you were willing to do that.
There were a few of them that I had.
Okay.
Him, I don't think specifically. I only had him for 6 months.
Okay.
But in that 6 months, it sounds so cliche, but he taught me so much. So, like, my boyfriend and I was like, we need to drive to New York. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I have to get this dog. And he's like, and this was a huge thing, too, because I had no idea what the process was at the shelters in New York to be able to get dogs that were on the euthanasia list.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any friends in rescue at the time who were able to pull from those shelters.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you can't get anybody on the phone. It's all email based. Oh, yeah. So I'm like, what? I'm like, we just got to drive down there and get this friggin' dog, which we did. Nice. His name was Geppetto. He was 5 pounds, if that. Every time he would bark, he would come off his front paws, and it was the funniest little thing. He was a giant pain in the ass. And then I was supposed to go to South Carolina with my family for Christmas, and I have family on the left coast and a few other places. So everyone was flying in, and he was deteriorating, and I knew he was going to wind up dying on Christmas. Okay. So I canceled the trip. And my mom was like, it's just a dog. I'm like, but you gotta understand, like, this is really important to me. And she was like, okay, that's fine. I respect it. So that's kind of how I started with the hospice rescues with the old little dogs, because you find there are animals all over the place that are mistreated, but you find a lot of times with things like chihuahuas and smaller dogs, people don't think they need to be walked because they can train them on pee pads. People don't think they need vet care, and they'll have a mouthful of painful teeth. They'll have urinary tract infections. They never got spayed, so they have baseball-sized mammary tumors. Yep. So my whole thing with these guys was just to take them in. My vet, Leslie, is amazing. She's been so wonderful to me. She's done so much for me. So she and her awesome team at our family vet in Peabody will take these guys in. We'll get all their teeth taken out. We'll have whatever needs to be removed if it can be. And then I just give them a safe place to crash and some love and good food. So it's like, I don't know what their life was like before that. Yeah. Whether they're with me for a week, a month, a year. Marshmallow, that I just lost a couple of months ago, she was with me for 3 years. And I told her constantly, I'm like, you're over your limit. There's a 1-year limit in this household, and you are way over it.
Yeah.
But at least I know that they knew love. A lot of times people will surrender their old pets to the shelter, and just say do whatever because they don't want to pay to have them put down. And I think it's traumatic for people also to be there when their pets get put down.
For sure.
Yeah.
But the last thing you want to do is like leave your pet in that moment where that's all that they know. And I never want an animal to like go to the other side in a place with weird smells and strange noises where they're like, why the hell am I here?
Yeah.
So they come
Talk
here.
about anxiety in a pet. For sure.
Right.
They have separation anxiety big time.
Absolutely.
Dogs, for sure.
And they don't
Yeah.
understand what they did wrong.
Yeah,
Like they
no.
lived with you for 13 years and now all of a
You
sudden
loved
they're
me
in this weird
unconditionally.
room.
I loved you unconditionally.
You're
and
old.
Now
You're
what
old.
hap- Yeah.
Right.
Go away
You're
now.
out.
Yeah.
You can't play
It's part of
fetch.
the family, you know?
Yeah. So anyway, so that was my whole goal, and then I started my foundation, Blues Bridge.
Oh,
to,
you did
to
start
take,
it?
I did.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We got nonprofit status last year, which
Nice.
was great. 501c3, so it's any donations are tax deductible. My dog Blue was a Doberman. She was the second dog I technically had. My ex and I years ago had bought a Doberman puppy before
Yeah.
I knew anything about rescue or anything like that.
Yeah. That's how you get started.
Right. I just didn't know any better. He
Yeah.
wanted a Doberman, and I'm like, all right. So I had a friend who had gotten, who had put a deposit on a puppy from a breeder in upstate New York. So I was like, all right, great. So we got this dog who wound up being named Zeus. He was a wonderful dog.
Yeah.
And we went there. His mom, Blue, was just the sweetest thing. She was just a nice dog. She just would sit next to you, like really docile.
Yeah.
She was a blue Doberman, so she was like silver and fawn colored. She was just wonderful.
Love it.
So about 6 months later, my friend calls me and said, the breeder is getting a divorce. They need to liquidate all their assets. So they're selling the dogs. I'm like, okay. I don't really want to buy another dog. So what about the mom? I would love to take the mom dog in. She's like, oh, that's her ex-husband's dog. I said, okay. A month later, my friend calls me back and said, she just called me. The ex-husband's not taking care of Blue. She's like locked in a garage. She's barely getting fed. I'm like, all right, I'll take her, like send her. So my ex's sister had gone up to get a dog. So they brought Blue back. She was completely malnourished. She was just a mess. And we got her back on track. And she wound up being just the most loyal, loving dog ever. Whenever I had foster kittens, that first litter of foster kittens I had with that gray kitten, I
Yeah.
had them in a cage. She was very
This is back when you were 15?
Yeah. This was in
12.
let's see, maybe like 2006.
Oh, okay.
2007. So it would be like 2006 that I got her.
Okay.
And then in 2010 is when I had that first litter.
Okay.
Not personally. I did not birth the kittens.
It's a miracle.
People will laugh at that. They're like, do you breastfeed those things? I'm like, not in public.
Yeah.
People get antsy about that.
Not in public. People
But
get
if you
very
would,
upset.
if you did that, that'd be okay
I'd be
too.
like, that would be amazing. I'd
Fine.
be like, it's an apparatus I designed for rescue people. It's actually great.
Yeah.
But when I had that first
Please
litter,
donate.
please donate for my. It's
Yeah.
Kickstarter. You can have a free one.
Exactly, yeah. And I'll do another
so-
Kickstarter in a year.
Yes. So I had a kennel downstairs, and the mom was able to roam, but the babies would like sit in there, and Blue would go in and either like she was like an 85-pound dog. She wasn't small.
Yeah.
So she would kind of work herself around the kittens and like be able to like hold them. And one kitten kept winding up in my bed. And at the time, my room was downstairs in the basement. And I'm like, this kitten is not old enough to climb a
Right.
bedspread. Like, how
Yeah.
is this kitten getting up there? So one day I like plopped the kitten back in the cage, and I just sat in the other room and waited.
Yeah.
And Blue like looked around. She goes into the kennel. She sniffed out the favorite one, the medium-sized one,
Yeah.
because they were all three of them were black. They looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
She would sniff out the one that she liked the best, pick it up in her mouth like very carefully,
Gently, yeah.
and like right just
That's
a
the
little
cutest
above the
story of
floor.
all time.
Take it to bed with her.
Hashtag Snapchat gold.
Seriously, and clean and just like clean her and like sleep with her, and
Yeah.
it was just a sweet. And she was like that with all my fosters, whether it was cats or dogs.
So cute.
So I named the foundation after her. Blues Bridge. The concept is kind of like the rainbow bridge. They go over to the other side. Blues
Interesting.
Bridge gets them from where they are to where they need to be, whether that's from a
Love
baby
it.
to an adoptive home,
Right.
or from a not great home to something comfortable before they're ready to pass.
That's what we're trying to do with our listeners. Get them from where they are to where they want to be.
Right.
First, decide what you want to be.
I'm not you're not gonna suck on my teeth though.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, unless you want.
Not on camera.
Unless you want. I gotta pee.
it depends on the listener. I'm kidding. Kevin's gonna go to the bathroom. So I had a question. It's funny that this happened. I always say there's a part of us that never changed.
Yes.
And that's the truest part of us
Mm-hmm.
from a spiritual standpoint. I want to ask you, it basically says this: what's the truest part of you at your core? And I have my opinion based on what I know of you,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm definitely want to share that as well. And then I said, what about you never changed? Because for me, I feel like that's where our purpose lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your...
I think it's probably my nurturing nature.
Yeah.
Because it stands that way with animals, which is pretty easy because they're
I
very...
wish I had a flashcard in my pocket of like what I was thinking,
Right,
so
be
I
like,
could say,
bam!
"Oh, by the way, you're
There it is.
nurturing." Yeah, nurturing specifically of animals is what I was going to say. But
But I
keep going.
think with people as well.
Okay.
Because I have a very even though I don't have children, I have a very motherly
For
type
sure.
instinct.
For
and,
sure.
if I see that my friends are struggling or hurting or need help,
Yeah.
I try to kind of swoop in and be like, what,
I got that when my puppy passed away.
Yeah.
You were so kind.
I'm glad.
People
what
need
can I
that
do? How
so
can I
much.
help you?
Yeah, totally.
Especially if it's something I know that I've been through that feeling and known that anxiety or that strife or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
If I know that somebody's hurting, even if it's someone I don't like,
Yeah.
even if it's
Oh,
someone
for
who's
sure.
screwed me over in the past, it's still, I hate to see people hurt. I could never just be like, well, screw you. You were a jerk to me. I'd be like,
For
all
sure.
right, let me put that aside. Come here.
Do you listen to Wayne Dyer at all?
I do. I love
You
Wayne
do?
Dyer.
Okay, I
Yeah,
can tell.
yeah.
Okay, he's amazing.
He's
One of my
fantastic.
favorite authors.
Yeah.
Unfortunately passed
Very
away a few
sad
years
loss.
ago.
Yeah.
Very sad loss. So when you say, I remember talking about the Hill Man Morning show and saying that it tends to be a more masculine show.
Yep.
And that you're the perfect feminine energy to balance that.
Thank you.
And I always say never underestimate the power of the feminine perspective.
Right.
Seriously. And you have that nurturing. I think that you bring so much compassion and empathy to that show.
Yeah.
Because
I
that's like
try.
who you are.
Yeah.
And when I reached out and I was in such a bad place. Boo, I had him for 12 years. He took care of us so well. My mom and sister loved him so much. That was such a harsh loss, especially because of how it happened.
Right.
I went for a run around the block and drunk drivers hit him. And it was
Just
my
came back.
fault.
Right.
I still feel like it was my fault because I didn't block the doggy door.
Right.
And he just wanted to come with me.
Right.
So, and believe it or not, he put my journal in his teeth and brought it out to me. And I found him at the top of the driveway.
Oh, God.
Jesus.
It's so sweet.
So
So
just came back from the bathroom. Can you take it easy?
I know.
Can you warm me up a little bit?
You missed the warm up.
I missed the
missed
warm up. So what I asked her to catch Kevin and the listeners back up is I feel like there's a truest part of us, and that lives within the part of us that never changed. And what I was asking for her was what that was for her, and she said her nurturing nature, and specifically with both people and animals.
I was gonna say that probably goes hand in hand. Why you often say I forget about myself. I do so
Yeah.
much for other people. You're just a nurturer. I'm the same way. I'm very similar.
So if I can be frank, I feel like when you do have anxiety, it's when you're not living from that place.
That's a very good perspective. That's a very good perspective.
'Cause
Definitely.
I feel like our anxiety is a signal, an emotional signal trying
Yeah.
to tell us you're not living your highest purpose.
Right.
Yeah, that does make sense.
does
Because
make
for me, walking
helping
into a
others.
bar, I have no interest in going anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So going to the gym though,
Yeah.
sure, sometimes I don't want to go.
Right.
Some days I wake up and I'm I'm sore, I'm tired, I don't
going
want to
tonight.
go. Yeah, we're going.
Kevin's like, no promises. I'm
Yeah.
like, we're going
You're like,
tonight.
no,
Yeah.
we're going.
We'll
Yeah,
be there.
exactly.
We'll be there.
We
but,
will.
But that's my why power. This would I drive an hour
Right.
to get dinner with somebody that I've never met?
Right.
Probably not.
yeah, probably
If it
not.
was you, I
Unless,
would for sure.
unless so I think your mission is your purpose is to always help people.
For sure.
Copeland, one of my business partners, he reached out. He was having some really hard time in high school. You guys talked about this on the podcast.
Yeah.
He was going to commit suicide. He called you.
Yeah.
And he always told me how amazing you were, even when you and I didn't get along so well, because he thought I had an
I
ego.
heard that bit. Yeah.
Yes, he was insecure.
I was super insecure.
It didn't mesh. It didn't mesh.
No.
Now it does.
It does.
But I think your purpose is to help people when they're in need.
So-
a big part of that. And when you're going into a bar and you have anxiety, there's no medium to help people
That's
in
true.
that
Right,
place.
yeah.
Really,
That's true.
for you.
All I
personally.
could do is make people laugh, and that's not the place to make people
Yeah,
laugh.
because the music is so damn loud now, and all it is is
Exactly.
There's no lyrics anymore.
when no, seriously,
Yeah, there's
right?
none, yeah.
boots and pants.
Are we going to the club tonight?
No,
After the
yeah, we're
gym.
going to the gym.
After the gym.
Let's
yeah.
go
to
to
the
the
gym.
Let's get it.
There was so we had a party for your birthday, or no, we had a party, and Andrew was going through a lot of stuff.
After I won the show.
Was that when it was?
I think so. And he didn't come to my show because he was going through a lot.
Yeah, and he showed
pulled
up
you.
that night, and when he came, I literally just walked in the woods with him, and he just cried on my shoulder. I left the entire, and I think I was pretty drunk.
Yeah.
But when he came, I just snapped out of it.
yeah.
My
Yeah.
purpose, cool.
Right.
Let's do that.
Yep.
You
That's
just
the
get into
shit I
that
love.
mode.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just love that.
You've been that for me too, man.
I appreciate that, and
It's-
I will.
That's what fills you up.
I will
brother.
continue to be that
And
for
whenever
everybody I
you're
can.
in an anxious place, just remember, it's because I'm not living that purpose.
I had an anxiety attack almost in bed the other night, and I literally just laid there, focused on my breath and what I was grateful for. I fell right asleep.
Beautiful.
That's
things.
awesome.
Right
That's
asleep.
huge.
awesome.
I had to consciously say, take it
Yeah.
easy. You're fine. This is gonna happen.
Oh yeah.
Deep breaths. Just focus on your breath, and if you have to think of what you're grateful for.
Yeah.
Boom. I fell asleep. Woke up.
Love
Good
it.
day.
I'm
Good.
glad that we got to send her the great gratitude episode.
I know, yeah, that was
Right?
awesome.
So
It's important. It's important. I think a lot of people don't realize all the things they have to be grateful for. And like you guys mentioned in the episode, how often do you think about what you don't have versus what you do have?
Right.
And that really does set the stage for, I could sit here and be like, well, I don't have this, and like I don't have time to do this, and like I'm out of shape, or I don't feel good, or my skin's a mess, or blah. But it's like
you just beat yourself up.
But it's like I have a beautiful home.
Oh yeah.
I'm safe. I have the means to support myself by myself. I have an
Independently,
amazing job.
self-reliant.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I don't need, I have so many friends that struggle with, either wanting to buy a house or wanting to move on or start a business, and they just don't have the means. And I'm like, you know what? I'm very lucky in that I have this great, not only do I have a wonderful job, and I have a support system outside of that, not only at work, but my family, and I have people my friends that want to see me succeed.
For
and
sure.
It's like, I just have to get out of that little like rut of, feeling sucky about stupid things where it's like, I have to get real with myself and say, you know what? No one else is to blame except for me.
Yes.
If I'm feeling out of shape or overweight, well, stop eating crap.
Right.
Yeah.
You have the tools and the resources. I have the knowledge
Yep.
to do to eat what it would take to get my skin clear,
Yep.
to get my body smaller,
Yep.
to get more fit, to get overall just a sense of wellness and better feeling where I don't have that midday crash and feel like I have to take a nap or I'm exhausted when I wake up in the morning.
For sure.
I know these things.
Yep.
I know how to do all these things.
Yep.
It's just a matter of getting real with yourself and being like, why aren't you doing
Right.
it?
Yeah, the truth will set you free. That's what this podcast is all about. Why aren't you doing them? That question. This is what I want. Why aren't I?
Exactly.
What's holding me back?
Because if you don't ever figure out, if you're not real with yourself, you will quite literally never get what you want.
You'll
Never.
pigeonhole yourself into
There'll
that
always
story.
If I can't get to the gym because I'm too busy, but we talked about this, but I'm spending 3 hours watching Game of Thrones every night.
No
Right.
excuse.
Yeah.
Your excuse is that you just don't go to the gym. Your priorities aren't straight.
You're valuing on a subconscious level Game of Thrones.
There's 80. You have
over the gym.
80.
And see.
Take it easy, sunglasses. you have 80 years on this earth. This is the thing I'm most passionate about. You have 80 years. You shouldn't spend 50 of it doing a job you don't like.
Yeah.
You shouldn't spend a minute of it in a body you don't like. You shouldn't spend a minute of it with somebody you don't like. Do what the fuck you want, because you're the one who's going to regret it on your deathbed.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to care.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a book, and one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what are your favorite books? Because I think what we read and input into our brain shapes us.
Right.
And you are obviously very well read, which I admire so much, so much. One of the things that I wanted to ask you was, have you read the book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying?
I have not.
Okay. That's a book that I think it'll resonate with. I have a flashcard in my pocket with all 5 of them written out.
All right. I'm getting on
That's
it
a
today.
book you're going to love. Yes. Oh,
Okay.
beautiful. So her name is Bronnie Ware. She actually reached out to me on Instagram. Hopefully we'll have her on the podcast.
Nice.
one day.
Oh,
She
that'd be
did a
great.
TED Talk as well. I'll send you a link to her
Okay.
TED Talk.
I love TED Talks.
It's
love
all about,
TED Talks.
so she worked in hospice, which is people who are terminally ill who were going to die, and she was there to take care of them. But what she realized is that the real thing she was there to do was to listen, and all of the things they said started with "I wish."
Yeah.
They all had regrets, and what she started to realize is they all had the same regrets. I can name all 5 of them.
Hammer 'em.
The first one is, "I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me." That's the fearing judgment.
Yep.
Number 2 is, "I wish I hadn't worked so hard." Now, before everyone uses that as an excuse to not work hard, I think that's because of number 1.
Yes.
I have that written on the flashcard
Yes.
because of number 1.
Yeah, they're hand in hand.
Because I love hard work, but only when it's what I love.
Right.
Right. You don't want to work hard at something that doesn't
fill
fulfill
you up.
Right.
Exactly. Ah, so glad we're doing this. Number 3 is, "I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends."
Yeah.
Huge. I know that you're super family oriented, super friend oriented. You're literally in the house that you grew up in.
Yeah.
And that's so cool to me because people are like, "Oh, Alan, you want these big goals and dreams," but it's like you're living in the same home you grew up in. I'm like,
Right.
you don't get it. I want to be the best of both worlds.
Right.
I don't have to have no family.
And it's a dope house.
It's amazing. It's on a lake, and it just makes me feel so good. I feel like
It's
Walden
awesome.
Pond sometimes.
Yeah.
Out there writing, I'm like, yeah. I'm like,
Right?
I'm like Emerson,
This
you
is
know?
it. Yeah.
You know? Right. But the 4th one is, I wish I had the courage to express my true feelings.
Back to fear of judgment.
Back
Yep.
to fearing judgment. What was the last one?
Uh-oh.
Oh, I wish I let myself be happier.
Yeah.
Let myself. Give yourself a permission slip to be happy for no fucking reason.
Right.
Other than you're healthy. I have my health right now.
Most
If
people
you're
wonder
wealthy-
why they're not happy because you're not doing anything you enjoy.
Right?
You're spending 50 hours a week going to a miserable office that you don't like.
With people you don't like.
You're hanging out with people who aren't doing anything. Not, and this isn't everybody,
Yeah.
but a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
I was there.
Right?
Back when I was listening to the Hill Man Morning Show, drinking every night, and
Hungover
you
in
inspired
your car
me.
being miserable.
Hung over in my car, taking a nap.
Right.
Right? Everyone else thought I was killing it from an outside perspective.
Right.
Oh, you got a beautiful girlfriend. You
Right.
got all
Yeah.
these friends.
Making
Everything's
good money.
great.
Making
Yeah,
good
you're
money.
doing well.
But I was hungover every day.
Yeah.
I was miserable on the inside.
Yeah, you felt like crap.
That's the shit that matters.
Yeah.
I have a question that I ask everybody.
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
I ask everybody.
Hammer it.
Danielle, what do you want to accomplish before you die?
There are a lot of things I want to accomplish before I die. I would like to be able to put more content out into the world that will help people, kind of like what you guys are doing with this podcast. Eventually I'd like to do my own. That's one of the things I haven't gotten off, haven't taken the jump to do yet, because I have so much to say. And while I have an amazing platform and an amazing reach on the show, not everything I want to talk about or discuss in depth would necessarily be interesting to our audience.
Yep.
So it's kind of like that guided directive where, you can have 1 million followers on social media. You probably will only have a couple thousand engaged followers, because from my perspective, I'm a radio personality. So people want to see what I'm doing and what's going on in my life because it's just interesting. It's like, I follow plenty of local TV and radio, my fellow colleagues, just to see like what's going on in their lives, because
follows
it's
me
interesting
in the
to
gym.
me. I do follow you in the gym.
Does
And
she?
I'm
I was
well, he's back in
just
there
guessing.
again. I'm going to check and make sure you're there tonight.
Yeah.
Pressure.
Yes.
Total pressure.
Not all about me, Alan.
But for those people who are engaged, people that are so great, like yourself, Alan, or like other people who have reached out to me and sent me messages and be like, I just want to say I love what you do with the animals, or, I love the stuff that you talk about. I love your attitude about certain things. Like, I think the same way, and I think that's great. And to be able to expand upon that, whether it's in a podcast format or like a video format, like, I was going to leave the show a couple of years ago, a lot of it was a contract negotiation thing. In business, it happens. It's not something I wanted to publicize on the air and be like, well, this is X, Y, and Z. There were also other things I wanted to do that, we're coming up on 2 years later in September that I still haven't done. And that's a reality check that I look to myself where I'm like, okay, I was going to make cute cat and dog videos. Not like the plain things like a cat running across the floor and rolling over, but like really scripted, like in-depth, like produced, like, wow, this is the next level of cat video.
Love it.
I also want to do...
Getting people to care more about animals.
Right.
Yeah.
It goes hand in hand with awareness. So it's not just, here's a cute cat video. It's like, there's more to this that you'll see behind the scenes.
I love it. Miyagiing people.
It's total Miyagi.
Yeah.
And then... I've always wanted to do, I had a cooking show in high school. So I always wanted to do like cooking and instructional videos on stuff that I love to kind of break it down for people. Everyone and their mother is doing it, but that's the great thing about the internet space, especially with stuff like YouTube, is there's room for everybody.
Oh, for sure.
You could follow 1,000 different people that have cooking shows. You could watch the same way to make a certain thing 1 million times. But you're still going to watch it because you're engaged with that person and you like what they do. So like when I did my home renovation here, part of the way I decided to do the whole kitchen setup was so that I could have an island and basically a set. Thank you.
We won't do an episode of MTV Cribs and show you everything. But it is nice.
I mean, on Snapchat,
yeah,
I might.
Yeah, on Snapchat you might see it.
Right.
Only with your permission, of course.
Absolutely. But I basically wanted a set to be able to do stuff like that, and have like like even though how we're doing this podcast here is like have this corner of this room to be able to do that. And, Hillman and I kind of joke about that because he put a couple of Instagram like cooking things up recently and people are like, do this recipe, do that recipe. And I love it. I think it's great. So I put up one and I'm like, I don't want it to seem like it's a tit for tat thing. I think it's just cool that people like to see that element of our lives. So going back to your original question, Kevin, it's I want to be able to help people more than I am now.
Right.
I have achieved a certain level of success in my career. I've achieved a certain level of success with other things in my life. Not to say I haven't worked for it, but not with the amount of work I could put into it. So one of the things that I want to challenge myself to do is really hone my focus in. And unfortunately, I've had a lot of distractions in life, whether it's something as simple as clutter. Clutter is something that people are trying to get out of their lives. And, we talked about this before the podcast. I follow a lot of minimalists online, whether it's The Minimalist or Jenny Mustard is a great channel to watch. She and her husband, David, are super minimalist. I think they live in Germany now. And just to kind of cut down on the stuff that you don't need. And it goes back to the things that fulfill you, whether it's keeping relationships in your life.
Quality over quantity.
Right. People that I have my close circle of friends that that I
dream
rely on
team.
for things. They really are the dream team.
Yeah.
And then I have the outer circles. You know, it's kind of like the shells of electrons.
I'm sure you have a lot of those. Yeah, you have a lot of those
I
probably
do.
as a public figure, for
But
sure.
there are a lot of people who have been in my life who are just, they're like energy vampires. It's a constant suck down
Oh, yeah,
because
for sure.
they get it, the second they get around you, you're like, well, I'm exhausted and I can't do anything else.
This is why I don't hang out with you.
Right.
Well, that's your indicator to not. You know, I always say surround yourself with the persons, places, and things that you love. I actually wrote that down. Persons, places, and things. I always say know your nouns.
Yes. Yeah.
And you were saying that the formula for unhappiness is do what you don't like with people you don't like, and most
places you don't
importantly,
like.
learn how to dislike everything you do, like
Right.
complain all the time.
Yeah.
To design a life you love is do what you love with the people you love, and most importantly, love everything you do. Even if it sucks, you can learn to love it
Right.
as
Right.
the habit.
Yeah.
So back to the question of you, what do you want to accomplish before you die? You want to help more people in the things that you're passionate about.
Right.
And you have a platform as a public figure to
Right.
do that. And to me, I always tell people, like, I love the Hill Man Morning Show. Love it. Always have. I think it's an awesome show, especially the humor. But I always liked you the most.
Thank you.
Truly. And I always told people, and remember, I said, I love her mind.
Yep.
And now that I'm pulling back the curtain,
Yeah.
and seeing that you have always been education oriented,
Yeah.
like self-education
Oh, yeah.
oriented, it's so cool because I feel like if you do have when you do have a platform, you're gonna show people that there's more than meets the eye, and that it's reading these books, it's these audio books, it's expanding my mind and outside my comfort zones and being real with myself. This is what made me who I am, and you can do it too.
It's not by accident.
For whatever you're passionate about. So I think that's going to be huge for you. Is just because on the show, I do think that your mind is there for anyone. It takes one to know one.
Right.
But if you want to help people who aren't quite there yet
Right.
with the self-education, like you said, self-development,
Yeah.
I don't feel like everyone is sold on it.
They're not.
You know what I
They
mean?
think it's hokey.
Right.
That's the thing. So if I bring up anything on the show related to that, people are like, oh, shut up with this nonsense. And I look at it almost like a concert festival type atmosphere. So you've got the main stage and then you've got the side stages.
Yeah.
So the show, for all intents and purposes, or all intensive purposes, as LB would say, the show is on the main stage.
Yep.
I'm over here on the side stage. I'm on the main stage with the main band,
Yep.
but I also have the little side act going over here. Not everyone from the main stage is going to necessarily want to see what I'm doing over here on stage B, but the people that want to engage in that and take that in and say, okay, well, I saw that performance, but I want to see the acoustic performance, and I want to hear her spoken word thing.
That's literally me. When I was in the car, that's what I saw. I get the Hill Man Morning Show. I know what that is. I love it. It's entertaining, humor, all that. But this mind is what I aspire to be.
Yeah.
People that are like that are gonna resonate towards you. That's why this is happening.
Analogies
That's why you're on
are
the show.
life too. That was a great.
That was a
Thank
great
you.
analogy.
Thank you.
I pride
So-
myself in being the best, but the belt is
I'm all
yours.
right. I'm all right.
The belt is yours.
Thank
You're
you.
absolutely gonna kill it.
Thank you.
You
You're
already
gonna
are
kill
killing it.
Yeah, you already are killing it. But the next stage, for trying to accomplish the level of impact you want to have, the only thing I can say is there's the LinkedIn CEO. He always said this: the first draft is for the trash. Basically,
the
if
test
you aren't
pancake.
embarrassed by your first product, you launched too late. Why is that?
Right.
How do you get good at something? You go and screw it up.
Yeah.
Figure out what you screwed up, and then do it again
and then
better.
you do it again better.
We do that every podcast,
Yep. Yeah.
every single time. Now that you know that and are going to act on it, you're going to absolutely kill it because your mind is next level.
Right.
Thank you.
You're
Right.
welcome.
I look at it as total immersion. Like, when people learn languages,
Yeah.
they get dropped in another country with a family, and total
Osmosis.
immersion. Yeah, it's the only way you don't have a choice
Right.
but to adapt and but to learn it. And I kind of approach the self-development stuff, in that same mindset. Like, so for instance, when I'm doing chores, I'll throw on a TED Talk in my headphone. Like, I have Bluetooth headphones. I'll throw that on. I'll just be like vacuuming or washing the floor. And then I'll let myself go down that YouTube rabbit hole. Or if I'm doing laundry or gardening or whatever, I'll just let the next ones come up and the next suggested things. And if I don't like it, I just skip it. But oftentimes you get like 3 or 4 levels deeper in something that really interests you. And you're like, wow, I had no idea that this person was putting this product out or this concept out or this idea.
Right.
And, I'm very big into, positive mindset, manifesting, asking the universe for things, putting it out there because I've seen it does work.
Right.
It does
And
work.
People will be like,
This show is a perfect example of that.
Right.
I wrote this down.
Right.
And it's happening.
and people are like, oh, but that's so hokey. And it's like, well, how can you say it's hokey if you haven't tried it?
Yeah.
And people have a very all or nothing mindset sometimes. So they'll be like, well, so for like instance, I don't tend to wear Nike products because I don't like the fact that they hired Michael Vick back as a spokesperson after
With the
thing.
dog thing. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, totally.
That's just my personal choice.
Yep.
I don't live every segment of my life adhering to that. That's just one little thing where I'm like, I don't love that they did that,
Yeah.
so I don't wear
You
the
vote with
stuff.
your money.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
I I don't make a big deal out of it. I mean, I've mentioned it on the show once or twice before. I'm mentioning it here, but I don't like. I don't shame people. I'm like, oh, I can't believe you wear Nike.
Yeah.
Because there are other things in my life that I'm probably doing that, like I have a leather couch.
Yeah.
Like I've had it for a long time.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't buy another one in leather.
Yeah.
But somebody would be like, well, you have a leather couch.
But when you bought that, you weren't aware
Right.
of that, or you
Yeah.
just weren't thinking of it, or whatever. Yeah.
So it's like I can make small choices to try to better my overall, goal or attitude towards something, or, trying to set a standard. You build upon them. It's like with everything else in life. You're not going to be living your life completely, you can't possibly research every single little thing. You can't possibly be doing everything right. But as long as you have that goal where you're like, you know what, I want to be better at whatever the thing is. I want to be a better person. I want to be more cognizant of this. I want to make better decisions. It's like the podcast. It's like learning anything. You start somewhere and you build from there. And the people that tell you like, well, it's like you're not going to have Joe Rogan's podcast tomorrow.
Oh, of course not.
Joe Rogan is my hero, by the way.
He's
ultimate
amazing
hero.
with
My
the,
ultimate
with the
hero.
product that he's developed.
Yep.
But anyone who expects you to be like, well, you're no Joe Rogan. It's like people, I never.
But Joe
tried-
Rogan wasn't Joe
Right.
Rogan when he started.
Exactly.
Every expert was once a beginner.
I did a Scratching the Surface. I did a solo episode on that.
Yeah.
Somebody I was working with was like, yeah, but you're not Joe Rogan. And I said, I know. Joe Rogan wasn't Joe Rogan before he was
Right,
Joe Rogan.
exactly.
Yep.
Like, that's the reason I'm going to be me
Right.
as Joe Rogan is because I believed in myself and nobody else did. Or not nobody else.
I also think
But-
heroes are important because that helps guide you in a direction. I always say, I always used to use hashtag real life superheroes. And what that meant to me is we all, the comic book movies have gotten really big, as you know. And I think that the reason why we resonate with a specific superhero, like, oh, Captain America's my favorite, or Iron Man, or whatever, I think it's because we see a part of that within ourselves. Every movie goes the same way. They have this horrible, life-changing tragedy in the beginning, all things burning down, and then they find their own uniqueness, and then they, like, build from there. And it's like that happens to us, too. Everyone talks about post-traumatic PTSD.
Yeah.
I talk about post-traumatic growth. And I think that when something tragic happens in our life, assuming that it doesn't take our life, whether it's a loved one or our own, Boo dying, for example, my
Right,
dog,
yes.
right? That changed me forever because I had to find strength in that pain. When you say that people don't really buy into self-development or agree with that, how do we get people to really understand the value of personal development and get them to see it not as a selfish act, but that you're actually going to have more to give? Because if you don't grow,
Right.
you have nothing to give. You're a Wayne Dyer fan.
Right.
He says, if I want to give you 12 oranges, I have to go pick them.
Right.
Otherwise, I have nothing to give you.
Right.
So how do we get people, let's say on the Hill Man Morning Show or our listeners or people on Instagram, to really buy into and actually start doing personal development?
I think it's one of the biggest things is to be consistent with it and to continue, your authentic expression. When you guys do this podcast or put up Instagram posts, it's not just like some random college chick from BC who's 19 putting up an inspirational meme.
Yeah.
You live that life. You live that authentically, and that's how you are every single day. It's not like you're doing it for show. You don't do it. You don't set it up to do it for Instagram. You don't set it up to do it for the podcast. That's how you live. It's like character, what you do when no one's watching.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's when you live that life, even when no one's watching, it becomes
Alone at the gym at 3 a.m.
Right.
Yep.
It becomes the person that you are. And it's like anything. You just have to keep doing it and putting it out there and hope that you can't force anyone to buy into it. 'Cause
Yeah,
you're going to
no.
have the skeptics who are going to try to talk people down
for
no
sure.
matter what.
Yep.
But you will have those people who will be like watching on the sidelines. Might be a long time. And then they'll be like, oh, it seems kind of weird, or it seems, I don't know. Maybe I'll read the book, or maybe I'll listen to the podcast. And it's just, you just have to keep putting it in front of them, and eventually, it's going to trigger them to take an action. Whether it's picking up a book, getting an audiobook, listening more of your podcasts, listening to a TED Talk, or just deciding that they're going to go out one day and be like, you know what? I always wanted to learn how to fish, or I always wanted to learn how to cook, or I always wanted to learn how to friggin' be a curler. Like whatever it is.
I love curling,
Stir
by
the
the way.
pot.
Right.
Is that what you're saying? Do it enough to
Basically.
where you're leading by example and you're stirring their pot to the point where they're like, maybe there's something to this.
Right.
For me, in that parking lot napping hungover, like your mind inspired me to want to be like that.
Right.
Like more educated,
Right.
more, because I've always been quote unquote smart, but like I wasn't into personal development back then.
Right.
But I knew you were, but I didn't know it consciously.
Right.
I was like, how?
You could sense it.
Because back then I had a fixed mindset, like smart people are smart and
Right.
Right.
not smart people are not smart.
Right.
She's smart. And then I started to kind of like reverse engineer the finish line. Like, what is she doing that's made her that way? Because this is inspiring. I want to be articulate. I want a good vocabulary. I want to be good at speaking. And I'm a speaker now.
Right.
And it's like,
look at that. Incredible.
If you weren't leading by
right?
If you weren't leading by example, would I be?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's crazy.
Who knows?
It's kind of crazy.
Who knows?
Like, it's no one thing. Just
Yeah.
like we talked about in the preamble. It's not ever any one thing.
Right.
It's like all of it comes together and somehow it catalyzes a spark. And as long as you don't let that spark go out.
That's the thing, though.
Right.
Yeah. You got to not let the spark go
My
out.
best analogy for that is when, can you do the splits?
No.
If you
But
try.
it's a goal. It's a goal of mine.
Okay, so perfect.
Yeah.
There's I started following yoga. Yoga with Adrian. Shout out to
Yoga with
Adrian.
Adrian.
Beautiful soul.
Yeah.
The first video, it's a 30-day yoga, learn how to do yoga. The first video has 3.5 million views. The last one has 300,000.
Right.
Yeah.
So that shows you people
That
are
shows
not
you
sticking
why
with
people.
it.
So I was talking to Tom, our good friend Tom, last night, and I said, honestly, I think the recipe for success is this, or the outline of success is this. It is consistent effort taken in the proper direction regardless of outcome. If you fail,
Yeah.
most people quit.
Right.
We go back harder.
Right.
So you punch me in the face, I'm punching you back harder.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you're going to hit me again, but I'm going to hit you harder.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to figure out how not to get hit and then hit you harder. And then it's just going to continue.
Fighting analogy.
I want to be the best.
It's true, though.
I want to be the
It's
best
true.
at what I do.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to understand that you're going to have to take a beating. But when you take a beating, you learn to cover up. When you take a beating, you learn how to counterpunch. When you take a beating, you learn that they get there's just so many lessons you can take from losses.
So many report cards.
So
back
many.
to your weaknesses.
So many.
What your
Just
strengths
don't
are.
fear,
what
don't
your-
fear the feedback.
Yeah.
Don't fear the feedback.
Excellent example of that is the roadkill video. So I've posted that twice now, where I've posted an Instagram story where I have a dead possum and I put on gloves and or use a stick and I roll it over to check and see if it's a female with babies.
Yeah.
People think I'm nuts. So like, that's disgusting. That's gross. And I'm like, no, actually, it's compassionate and it's an animal that's beneficial. Possums eat a ton of ticks.
Yeah.
So they're
They're
not
necessary.
aggressive.
Yeah.
They're actually pretty beneficial little creatures. And if I can help little babies from not dying because their mom get hit by a car, probably through no fault of her own, it's just an animal trying to run across the street, then that's a good thing. And, most people are like, that's disgusting or whatever, but I'll have the couple of people that will message me later and say, hey, I just want you to know, like, I was a little afraid to do it, but I saw this possum that got hit by a car, so I checked it, and there were no babies. And I'm like, that's awesome. So, I'm not expecting everyone to pull over and check roadkill.
But it's worth it for that one person who
Right.
would go do that.
Right.
Because you're leading by example.
Right. And I'm like, it's just putting yourself out there to care for other beings and like look out for other beings.
You're going to get the like-minded. So I was sweating so bad on the treadmill yesterday. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
Like literally dripping all over the place.
Yeah.
A lot of people would be like, Kevin, that's fucking
That's
gross.
gross.
Right?
Yeah.
Like to you. But
What if that inspired someone?
what if,
Yeah.
if you
They'd be
were
like,
probably
wow, he's
like,
really working
"Wha-
hard."
He's getting after it.
Oh, for sure.
So it matters that you stay the course and be yourself because
Yeah.
people are going to see that.
Yeah.
And that's why people love you.
was-
People might not like you, but fuck them.
I was
Yeah, right.
I was telling Kevin not long ago, there was a person who reached out to me who lost their son, a wife and a husband, and I do the Twitter quotes,
Yes.
as you've probably
Yes,
seen.
I've seen them.
Okay, awesome. And there have been a lot of people who don't like the things I say,
Sure.
naturally. Aristotle has that quote, if you want to avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter what, if you're putting something that's important into the world, people are going to have their opinion
yeah.
about it, but that's what it is, an opinion. Remember that.
Yep.
It's not fact, right? So, but I told Kevin this, I'm like, that one person who in their lowest moment, they lost their son, said that this post was what they needed in their darkest
Yeah,
hour
it's huge.
is worth me taking all the other punches.
Right.
And we have to remember that in everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the kids yesterday from 8 through 15, I could literally see the fear of judgment becoming more and more because we did a push-up demonstration and
Yeah.
we did bicep curl demonstration.
Yeah.
And the little kids lit up like Christmas trees. They're like, oh my God, let me try.
Right.
They're all jumping in front of each other and all this stuff. When we got to the 14-year-olds,
They're afraid to fail.
They were all afraid to fail,
Yeah.
and they were all looking at everyone else to
Right.
see how they
How
did
did they
it.
do?
Oh, and then one leader stepped up. And then everyone did it. None of them
Yeah.
wanted to do it. Every other kid in that place who was 10 and under couldn't wait to get behind the table, to do push-ups, and to give it a try, and to do the bicep curls. As soon as you got to like age 13, 14, everyone was like, I'm like, who wants to do push-ups? I raised my hand. Crickets.
Yeah, no.
Nothing.
No.
One person did it. They
Yeah.
all got
Yeah.
9 and did it. So
Right.
leadership is going and doing it and then getting other people to realize like, oh, he's still doing it. It's all good.
Right. Yeah.
Like we can do it too.
You got to help them flick that first domino down.
Right?
That's the thing. It's
Yeah.
like people are afraid to
Right.
initiate, be the catalyst
Yeah.
for a huge reaction. But if you're just like, nudge,
Yeah.
like, oh,
Right. It's
That
not
was
big-
actually pretty
It's not a
easy.
big deal. I told
Right.
you I did the fire academy. I did the Mass Fire Academy, and I regret the entire process because I was afraid to try things. I was afraid
Yeah.
to get embarrassed. I was
Yes.
afraid to be humbled. I was afraid to look like an idiot.
Yeah.
I was afraid to be judged. And that for those listening, like that literally, it didn't wreck the experience, but it affected the experience in such a large manner that when I
yeah.
graduated the fire academy, I wasn't competent as a firefighter.
Right.
I wasn't confident enough to go for a job.
Right.
Now that's gone forever. So,
Love it.
and I
Because
could
the way you feel about you has changed. Your circumstances haven't.
No,
Yeah.
my
You're
circum-
still no more competent in the fire.
right.
Yeah.
But if
As a
I
matter
know
of fact,
if-
you're less. 'Cause-
I'm far less.
Yeah,
but
see?
I know if I went back, I'd be willing to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
And just don't be afraid to be humbled.
You used to say when you took a test and got a good grade, you thought you got lucky.
I thought it was an anomaly.
I remember thinking that, like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Wow.
I think you and I are very similar. I think we have very
Definitely.
similar, very similar
sure.
minds.
For
We
sure.
have like it's an hour and 25, so
Okay.
like 5-10 minutes left.
I was actually thinking, what's
worries.
the time?
We got you.
So, and we also want to be respectful of your time as
Yes.
well. I know it's Saturday. So,
I have seeds to plant, damn it.
yeah, true, which is more.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah, yes, yes. Oh, you are my
Inspiring
favorite.
minds all
You
over the
are my
place.
favorite. So, I had a couple things. One of them things that I wanted to say was that I started with admire. Like, what do you admire about her? I admire the fact that I think we live in a world that's exceedingly dabbling. In other
Yep.
words, we have shiny object syndrome. Like, it's less mastery driven. It's like, let me try that for like yoga with Adrian. First 5 days, yoga's not for me.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you just hit a plateau, like naturally.
Yeah.
and then
have to
that becomes your identity.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And then you
right.
become a habit of not sticking with
Right.
things. I consider you very mastery driven, and you've said that there are things in your life where you aren't. What you are mastery driven on is audio, your vocabulary, and your self education. Like, not everyone gardens with TED Talks in the background. I
Right,
mean, let's be
yeah.
honest. I think everyone should. Holy 18 minutes
Can
of
you
40,
imagine?
40 years of someone's
Right.
life.
Yeah.
The expert in their field, condensing it into simple terms in 18 minutes. It's like mainlining adrenaline for people
Basically.
who love self education.
Yeah.
It's like, if you love to learn, that is your drug, TED Talks. So I admire that you're a master of your craft and you stuck with the show. I talked about exposure therapy earlier. And so you had a fear of judgment. You also had a platform that helped you expose yourself to judgment to overcome it. Like when I got in my first car accident before my transformation 3 years ago, I had trouble walking. I had claustrophobia.
Okay.
I had trouble walking through doorways. And the way I got over it was exposure therapy. I would
Right.
puff my chest up and walk through doorways,
Right.
literally reps
Yeah,
per 100
just
times.
do
And
it.
it freaked out every time. Eventually, now I'm good.
And I was like,
And now
whatever.
I feel like a superhero every doorway I walk through.
Well, you look like one too.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. You said you weren't going
All
to
right,
boost my
calm
ego.
down. Let's go. Let's relax. Get down a notch.
So you have a platform to overcome fearing judgment
Yeah.
on the radio. You've had to, literally, to
Yeah.
master your craft.
Right.
What do people do that don't have that platform? What would you suggest?
I would say it's a matter of just recruiting help to put yourself out there. Like if you have a trusted friend or colleague that's in your circle, challenge them to challenge you. Challenge them to hold you accountable, because if you're stuck in this little bubble in your head of fear, you're probably not going to get out of it. Most people will not be able to get out of it on their own, no matter how many
Without some external
with
stimulus.
something.
Yeah.
No matter how many, I mean, you could even if you're listening to TED Talks and inspirational podcasts and self-help books, self-development, whatever it might be.
Yeah, or
You may still be like, all right, I'm equipped with all this knowledge. This is what I need to do.
Yep.
You will not put it into practice.
Right. Yeah.
So you need someone to be like, hey, do it. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Go do it. Try it. Try it. Do it. Try it.
That leads me to my next question, mentors.
Mm-hmm.
I like to ask people about their mentors. I personally, we always say that when you're rich, you'll be happy. People think that, right? And then they get rich and they're like,
You're
oh,
like,
there's
wow,
something
miserable.
that didn't change within me.
Right.
Yeah, so I have very wealthy mentors.
Mm-hmm.
I call them my self-made millionaire mentors. If you want to be in shape, get around in shape people, you'll become in shape.
Yep.
If you want to be wealthy, get around wealthy people, you'll become wealthy, because we learn through osmosis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I also know in a very real way that wealthy people aren't always very fulfilled on the inside,
Right.
especially if they created their wealth in a way that was unfulfilling.
Right.
So for you are a master of your craft in terms of self-education, vocabulary. From what I can tell, obviously on the radio, you're so articulate. Even since I've gotten here, we were talking in the preamble, I'm having trouble even hearing her. She's so good, because I'm just trying to figure out how she got so good.
You're used to talking to me. That's
Yeah,
why.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we're at the
Yeah.
beginning of our audio journey. She's
Right.
killing it.
I talk to myself a lot too, by the way, which most people would judge as crazy. Like whether it's in the car or in the house, I'm very big on not necessarily rehearsing things, but
Prep work.
But it's prep work, and it's knowing that, like, okay, if I say this, how's this going to sound? Or if I have this discussion with someone about something.
I've given speeches in my driveway alone. People would think I'm a crazy person.
They think you're crazy and bananas, but then you can hear yourself speak, and you can hear what you need to improve, and you can also hear, like, okay, if that were my response, I could see how someone might think this. Maybe I want to rephrase that.
Yes.
You know, so everything is like a big dress rehearsal for life, and there's no shame. You know, I'm just puttering around here, you know, cleaning, talking to the dogs, or cooking.
You say you're afraid of judgment, but I don't feel like you are.
I am, though. Like, deep down inside, I am.
Okay.
Because
it doesn't seem that way at all. You didn't seem afraid at all when we got here. Did you get that? Or maybe with certain things? No. I feel like you're
but it's
so
different.
free.
That this isn't as social. This is
Right.
like...
Okay.
This is like an
See,
intimate
you two
kind
are
of-
very similar in that.
Right.
I don't have that social
Yeah.
anxiety, really.
Yeah.
And I
It's
think
a bitch.
Oh,
yeah,
it's the
it
worst thing
sucks.
ever.
All right, word. Yeah. But you seem so free to me. Maybe it's in this environment and we've made you feel comfortable. I don't know.
It
but
is because
you're also
that's,
in your home.
and it's also because that's it goes back to that goal. I want to help people.
Yes.
So I want people to know
Right.
that, like Kevin and I, we relate on that
Yeah.
social anxiety thing, and I bring it up on the radio sometimes, and people, they're like, "Really, you just can't pick up the phone and call for a pizza?"
Yeah.
But there will be so many people that will message me or email me and be like, "Oh my God, I thought I was alone. I
Right.
thought it was so
I
weird
love that.
because I couldn't reschedule a doctor's appointment." Like, so for instance, I'm afraid of inconveniencing people.
Okay.
That's one thing I don't take action
Yeah, I
on
hate
stuff
that
because
too.
I don't want to inconvenience people. When in reality, you're not. Like, I worked at a veterinary office for years on Saturdays, just part-time. And when I picked up the phone and someone called to reschedule an appointment, it didn't affect me. Might affect, like, the doctor or the practice if it was last minute. But
Yeah.
if they're like, hey, my
Is this why you guys are always on time? Because
Gotta
you're
be.
anxious, you're afraid not to be?
I was chronically late.
Okay.
For
Did you have
my
these
whole
anxiety
life.
things back then? So I didn't mean to.
That's okay.
This is fascinating to me because you guys are super similar in this regard, and I'm trying to
I'm
understand.
quite literally never late. Never.
Yeah.
I
But
refuse
I think
to be.
that was
I am
fear-based
here and there
originally.
now. Now it's more of I consider it to be very inconvenient or inconsiderate to other people if you're late.
It is,
If
and you don't
you're-
want to be inconsiderate to others, which I think is a
Right.
beautiful quality. But if it's
Yeah.
because you're afraid of what they'll think of you, then it's from a place of fear rather than inspiration.
I think it's less from a place of fear in that respect, and
Okay.
more just from I want to be a reliable person,
For sure,
and I want
yeah,
to be
okay.
perceived
Confident.
as that
Because
way.
you can help more people when you're reliable. The
Right.
more people will trust
But
you.
you also
Right.
said you're afraid to be incompetent and to be seen as incompetent. Again, I'm sorry if I'm digging too deep here.
No.
I think that some of it's connected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay.
But
Well,
it's-
what about this, though? You practice being on time for so long, it just becomes part of you. That's part of who I am, man.
I need to practice it.
Right.
That's why I'm trying
Yeah.
to figure this out.
But
so
like-
that I can, maybe I need a little more
I think
fear
it's
of
like going to the gym. I just go to the gym because that's what I do. I'm just on time because that's who I am.
Right.
You've become, there's the 4 stages of learning, and you've probably heard this before. The first one is unconscious incompetence. The next stage is conscious incompetence. The next stage is conscious competence.
Yep.
And then the
And
last
that's
one is
unconscious
unconscious.
competence.
See, I
Right.
knew she'd know.
Yeah.
He thinks I'm psychic. I love it. The reason I know you know that is because it's the stages of learning. The first one is, and I think this is really important for the listeners to realize. Unconscious incompetence is when you're incompetent, but you don't even
didn't
know
know
you're
it. You have
incompetent.
no idea.
Yeah,
You have no
don't-
concept of
You
it.
can't tie your shoes, but
Yeah.
you don't even know that you need to or
Right.
that you
Right.
can't.
You're like, oh,
Then you
that's a
try
thing?
to, yeah, exactly. Then you try to tie your shoes.
So is that like a very, very small child?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And you in the gym are unconsciously competent. And as a matter of fact, that's mastery, by the way.
Yeah.
And you're that way with audio. And I want to get there, which is also why I'm picking your brain. And I consider you a mentor in this regard,
Thank you.
by the way, for sure. But in the gym, man, when people ask us questions like, oh, like they come up to us, they're inspired, and they're like, what does that
Yeah.
work? I'm like,
Yeah, I'm just doing this. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I know so well, and I've been doing this for 3 years every day, that
Yeah.
now I'm like, oh, yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
have to-
right.
Like when you watch Michael Jordan play basketball, you think you can do it, and then
Right.
you get on the court and you're like, Jesus,
what? Right.
yeah, he wouldn't be able to teach you because he's done it so many times.
Right.
Repetition is the mother of skill.
Right.
That he's unconsciously competent,
Right.
And that's mastery. So, you've reached that with audio. Is that in part due to your mentors and Greg Hill, maybe, or who
I
are your
think
big mentors growing up?
Greg is definitely a huge mentor for me, and I know it sounds like cliche and really neat to put that in a box, but Greg's been doing this for a very long time, and he's
Yeah.
really good at what he does.
Oh, he's so good at what he
Right.
does, for
And
sure.
when I first was trying, so I started working for a different company than Entercom when I started on WAAF. I was working for Metro Networks, and they provided news and traffic services in exchange for ad revenue with various different stations.
Yep.
So it got to a point where I was just doing little blips on the show, filling in, until I was really part of the show, like almost in a co-hosting capacity.
Yeah.
So, when I was negotiating early salaries, early deals, whatever it was, my boss, Ron, had said, I know you think you're good, but you're not really there yet. And it took probably a good 10 years of working with Greg to be able to feel like, yeah, I get this.
Yeah.
And I get him.
Yeah.
And like I'm at the point now where we have great chemistry and a great back and forth and a great respect for each other, and I can read his mind.
Yeah.
So like if he is like trying to wave his hands around, indicate to like Shu or LB or one of the assistant producers that he wants something, 9 times out of 10 I know what he wants.
For sure.
And I can probably find it pretty easily.
Yep.
Or, if we don't get a chance to talk before a break about, what we're going to talk about or something, I'm pretty instinctively know like, okay, it's 6:50. We didn't get to this story, but we do have these, like, he's definitely going to talk about this story first. So, but it took a long time of screwing up and doing the wrong thing and saying the wrong thing.
Yeah.
For that. And he's great about letting stuff roll off his shoulders. I've gotten better about it over the years, but there's still times where somebody will say something on the text line that hits me and I feel the need to respond. Yeah. And he's like, why do you even engage them? And I'm like, because I want that person to know that that's not who I am. But then I think about it, I'm like, you know what? Fred from Nashua doesn't care.
Yeah, and you also know that's not who you are.
Right,
So you're valuing their opinion higher than your own.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's just a worker guy. He's a worker. He comes in, he does that show. Yeah. And then, and everybody jokes like, oh, you guys work 4 hours a day. How hard is it?
That's he's such a master of his craft, though. He's unconsciously competent.
And he owns like, what?
But he's also, it's not just,
man.
we don't just come in and do the show.
Yeah.
Well, LB and I do,
Post-production
to be
is a lot. Yeah.
Sometimes LB just doesn't show up at all.
Yeah.
But
not for nothing.
Greg's constantly absorbing things to, as far as, prepping for stuff and, putting little nuggets away about news stories. And like, he's always, he does it in his own way, but he's always ready and he's always prepared and you can always go at a moment's notice. He also has his other businesses like the restaurants and whatnot. And he's the guy I don't know how he does it because he functions on 3-4 hours sleep. Yep. And it's an incredible thing because he just, someone asked him the other day if he was going to retire and he's like, probably from I don't know, blah, blah, blah. But he loves to work. Yeah. That's just who he is. He jokes about, his wife and kids on the show being like, oh, I work so they can have this nice life. But he truly loves to work and he loves getting involved in new things and he loves learning new things. Like when he started out in the restaurant industry, he probably didn't know a ton about it. Right. He worked previously in it years ago, but now, I've watched him over the years as he's opened new businesses, coming up with new ideas and really, you look at the old cliche of thinking out of the box. Greg's a master at that because we'll sit there for 5 minutes and he'll challenge me to be like, okay, well, how could you approach this differently? And I'm like,
questions change lives.
I don't know. Let me think about that. And he'll be sitting there on his phone, not even paying attention to you, like looking at Twitter, and he'll rattle off 5 ways. So he'll be like, okay, you could do this, and then I'm like, how the fuck did you even think of that? Like, where did you come up with that stuff?
Love it.
So he's really just so good at coming up with new ideas and new ways of thinking about stuff and new ways of approaching things. He's an innovator.
That's how his show has stayed successful.
Because our goal is to make you laugh.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to talk about serious things like school shootings and like elections and controversies and race issues in the country. Like everything that's pressing. But he finds ways to kind of twist it and make people laugh that are not offensive and that don't slight the original issue at hand. Yep. He'll just do it to kind of lighten the mood and be like, okay, we talked about this very serious thing. Let's all laugh and move on.
For sure.
And not laugh at a tragedy that happened, but laugh at life in a way that's like, let's turn this into a positive thing.
You do a phenomenal job of that.
Great
you
job.
all do. Yeah. I've laughed hysterically time and time again at that show, for sure.
I remember bits where I literally, I wouldn't get out of the car. Like I was working and I was like, nope. I'm not working right now. I got to listen to this. Like, what's happening?
To hear the rest of this.
I need to know.
Yeah, and people will text in about that a lot too. They'll be like, "Oh my God, could you please get to Stowe 50 or Brain or how creepy is it? Like, I have to I'm waiting in the car. I have to go to work, but I can't not hear this.
I need the rare content replay. I need it.
I literally had it on the app. Once you had the app, I could go into work and actually put it on my earphones.
Technology is a beautiful thing.
It is. So Greg Hill, he's been a huge mentor to you. What are some of the biggest takeaways? I think mentors are everything.
Yeah.
I think heroes and mentors. If you have no heroes that you look up to, and you don't know them consciously, and learn from them, it's Tony Robbins for me, for sure, one of my big ones. Wayne Dyer, we talked about, right? And then also your in-person mentors. I think you need both of those, because who you're around is who you become.
Oh yeah,
like it's not surprising to me that you are amazing at radio. You've been with a master of radio for the
Right.
last decade.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's no surprise we're in shape. We're around my mentor, Nate Smithson, at being in shape
Yep.
is next level at natural fitness. Now I'm 3 years later, I'm looking like him now.
Right.
And it's like, mentors are everything. So two questions. One is, what parts of you do you think your heroes and mentors have shaped within you, if you want to talk about Greg specifically? And the second one is, how do people get in the right arenas to find mentors that will help them?
So I think that, as far as what my mentors have shaped in me, it's taking what I excel at and like pushing that, and taking what I don't excel at and pushing that as well.
Okay.
So being able to give myself credit for the things I'm good at instead of feeling guilty about it. Like, oh, I feel guilty because I'm good at radio, or I feel guilty because I'm good at, whatever it might be, whatever skill set you might have, even if it's something you stumble onto quickly and you're like, wow, I hadn't, you don't know unless you try, right? So I could have been like a pro female basketball player or a pro skier or, whatever it might be, but I never tried that stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And you certainly didn't stick with it.
Right.
Necessarily, but you
Right.
did stick with radio, is why you're a master.
You got to make it through the mud.
Yeah.
You got to make it through the mud.
Exactly. So, to look at like not feeling bad about like celebrating the things you're good at.
Yeah,
You
building
know?
on success.
Right.
We talk
And
about
then-
the Jenga tower analogy. I
Yeah.
don't know if you
Yeah.
heard that in the gratitude
Yes,
episode.
yes.
So you do that. You
Yes.
practice that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Which is it's key.
Yeah.
And then, taking the stuff you might not be so great at or might not have honed yet and really kind of pulling that out and working on that too.
Yeah. Yep.
And then as far as people finding mentors, you can look at the people that are close to you whom you admire.
Yes.
And don't feel bad about approaching people and saying like, hey, it goes back to what you said about giving people compliments about when they do
For sure.
good stuff.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to let somebody know, hey, I think you're really great at this. Could you maybe coach me a little bit?
Yeah.
Like one thing that Greg does also for the station is not just being on the air. He's also really good at building client relationships when it comes to, company revenue and,
for sure.
advertising
Advertisers,
clients.
yeah, brings in-
and he's really, really good about nurturing those relationships and developing them and bringing
yeah.
people in. And
It's like the CEO of Echo Store, for example. would
right,
be-
John Dooley,
Yeah,
exactly. So to be very easy to go to him and say, hey, could you teach me or could you educate me on how you became good at developing these relationships or what your approach is? And he would be more than happy. Like, that's one of the big things is he, for however it appears on the radio, Greg's been great about working with people on developing their skill sets, like Stiz Grimy.
Yeah.
Stan used to be an assistant producer for us.
Okay.
Now he's producing Maddie and Nick in the afternoons. And
Yeah.
I know he had been someone that always went to Greg and asked him questions about stuff.
Love it.
And Hillman was a huge assist for
But it
that.
depends on you too, though.
Coming to fear
Yeah.
of judgment.
You have to be the person
Who
not
asks the
fearing.
questions.
Yeah.
Not fearing
So
judgment.
if people
Yeah.
fear judgment, they're less inclined to ask the question, especially
Right.
to someone they admire because they're intimidated, right?
Yeah.
So like, if I'm not as good at radio as you, and I know that I'm not because you're a master of your craft, how could I be? You've put in your 10,000 hours plus, right?
I have my
wanna
certificate.
Be. Fortunately, my self-esteem is high enough to where I can be
Yes.
like, listen, Danielle,
Hey,
like,
I need
I'll
this
get
info.
you ripped if
Right.
you teach
Yes.
me this radio
Right.
thing. So what about people that don't have the self-esteem? Because some of them, I always say that the people who need help the most are typically the least inclined.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so unfortunate. So what do they do to really get enough self-esteem to go and ask those tough questions to people they admire?
You follow people that you admire and see what they're doing.
Yep.
And then you can drill it down to people that are closer to you. So for like me, I have a few female mentors who are in the fitness arena. So like
do?
Jamie Eason Middleton, Amanda
yes.
Latona Kuklo, and Ashley Horner.
Are these
all
national?
huge.
Oh, these are local?
They're national.
Okay,
so,
they're national. Okay.
Jamie and Amanda are both in Texas. Ashley, I forget where she's down in like Virginia or West Virginia.
Okay.
Or Virginia Beach, that area. So they're all huge brands. I followed them for years. Ashley a little bit more recently.
Yeah.
But Jamie Eason I followed from the beginning of her career, and I was very lucky to meet her last year. And I literally cried when I met her, which is the most obnoxious thing because I'm like, I was like, there's no way I would ever cry
Starstruck.
meeting someone.
Yeah, hashtag starstruck.
And she was doing a thing with Reebok, and a friend of mine there facilitated it where I got to meet her, and she walked into the room, and I lost it. And I was like, oh, my God. And it was just a huge thing.
Yeah.
Then she followed me on social. We go back and forth here and there with, like, messages from time to time. And I'm like, wow. And it was, like, one of those things where you think in your head, I could never meet this person because they're so big. But I was like,
Dream
I'm
come
going to
true.
meet her someday. I'm going to meet her. And like Amanda Latona, booty queen. She's like known for her glutes and her bottom. And she's just built this amazing brand. She's got a fitness apparel company now. She's married to Steve King Snake Kuklo. They have their, the Kuklo Classic. They have all these like great things going on.
Love it.
And we had Damon from Shark Tank on.
Oh, okay.
He actually
Interesting.
he
Did
bought
you?
Yeah, he was great. It was a great interview.
Talk about a mentor for wealth creation.
Right.
But
Jesus.
he bought into their business.
Oh, okay.
Booty
Awesome.
Queen.
Nice.
So I had mentioned on the show.
Did they go on the Shark Tank, or did he
They
just
went
do
on
that
Shark Tank,
as an
yeah.
angel
They
investor?
went on
okay.
Shark Tank.
Did you share that?
I did.
I think I saw that.
I mentioned it on the air, and then I had tweeted about how I mentioned it.
No shit.
And then Steve messaged me, Amanda tweeted me back, and I was like, oh my God. So this was like another thing that's manifesting itself.
Oh, I love it. Love it.
Ashley Horner is someone who's been involved in CrossFit. She's got a couple different businesses. She's someone who does amazing philanthropic stuff. She goes she like runs Haiti. She like runs around Haiti to raise money for orphanages and stuff.
Wow.
And she's got like American Brew is I think the name of one of her businesses, Valkyrie Sport. She's just developed all these little mini businesses, and I was reading a
So
thing
these are
that
kind of
she-
like your heroes.
These are
in
my
a lot
heroes.
of ways. Yeah. Okay.
And it's like these are strong, empowered women that I've watched from years ago.
Yeah.
Do like a
Do their-
first fitness shoot
Lead
where
by
they
example.
were,
Right.
yeah, where they'd
And
be
you've
like,
grown with them.
I have, like whether it was like, they were in Muscle and Fitness or like Muscle Media 2000 back in the day when Bill Phillips started that magazine and then it turned into Muscle Media. It's just, you see the trajectory of these people and it's just, social media can be so horrible, but it can be so incredible.
So inspiring too.
Because it gives you access to people you normally couldn't have access to. So like because I work in radio, I have a verified Twitter handle.
Oh,
so
yeah.
if I tweet
True.
at someone,
Right.
they're going to see that probably more easily than they would
For sure.
some random person that just,
I need that damn
hasn't-
check
you
mark.
do- you need
Yeah,
the
you
check
really
mark.
do. You
it.
need the check
Your
mark.
ego needs the check mark.
Yeah.
more than you do.
He checks it every day when he wakes
checks
up.
it.
There it
Yeah,
is.
Don't worry. My ego has the check mark
There it
already.
is.
It's manifesting.
But I see these people that I wanna collaborate with, on something at
Yeah.
some point. I'd love to collaborate, whether it's a workout or a branding thing or a Q&A video or a vlog or a podcast, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And it's great that I have that way in which I can actually like reach them and get in touch with them. And
Yeah.
I may have an advantage being a personality, quote
But who are you to
unquote.
not leverage that?
Right.
Right.
Especially if it's to help people.
But it doesn't mean that if you're not and you don't have a check mark on Twitter, it doesn't mean you can't get through to these people.
Oh, for sure.
It doesn't mean
For
you
sure.
can't
I didn't have a
reach
check
them.
mark, and you and I
Right.
talked, right? So,
Yeah. Sometimes all you have to do is reach out to people and say, hey, I want to do something with you. I want to collaborate with you. Chris
lead
Harder-
with praise.
Yes.
Especially if they're your hero. I mean, I have a 30-second rule.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard of John Maxwell. John C. Maxwell?
No, I've heard the name, yes.
Okay. He's a business author, one
Yeah.
of the top business. Yeah, he's phenomenal. So he has the 30-second rule. Within 30 seconds of meeting someone, always compliment something that you genuinely,
Yes.
it has to be genuine.
Yes.
And I'm sure Greg does this unconsciously. He and that's how you build relationships. You want to build someone up. You want to make them
Yeah.
feel good, and it has to come from the heart, and it has to be something you genuinely appreciate about them. Like I wrote on the way here, what do I admire? The very first thing is that you mastered your craft in audio, because that's something I genuinely have always been impressed by.
Thank you.
And that is not only subconscious within me before I even walk in the door, but that's also a trigger to say, oh, by the way, you're amazing. You have
Right.
amazing vocabulary.
Right.
And that's all true, because if it's not true, people will tell.
Yeah,
They
they'll
have
know.
bullshit
They know.
radar.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
yours is off the
Oh,
chart.
thanks. I like your shirt too. Thanks.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Fucking Nike, right? But yeah, so the other thing I wanted to dive into a little bit. So favorite books?
And you know what? It's like one of those things where there's so many that
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't pull them off the top of my head.
So just like knowing your heroes and knowing your mentors,
Yeah.
I think that gives it more power. I think that knowing what books have shaped you, that's going to be huge if you dig a little.
I think any of the Happiness Project, any of the Wayne Dyer stuff, the Tony Robbins stuff, Mel
sure.
Robbins' 5-Second Rule has been huge.
That's such a good book.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of old books that have kind of stood the test of time. And so I think sometimes people are like, oh, that book was written in 1947. Like, why would that ever, be applicable today?
Yep.
But, you see these people who have put these things into practice and you're like, oh, that actually does work.
Maybe it's because that's how it works.
That is
Right.
how it works. So Think and Grow Rich is an incredible book. We shout out Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill was one of my favorite authors originally. I have every speech on my phone of his. Every speech he's ever done that
Yep.
was recorded. I listen to those all the time. It's funny because you and I have similar favorite books. and we had never met, but do you think that played a part in our ability to build rapport in the beginning? Even
I think
if it was
so.
over Instagram?
Yeah.
Because I look through your profile, like you on the radio, I listen to the show, and I resonate with who you are.
Right.
Because like attracts like.
Right.
Birds of a feather flock together, ships in the same harbor rise and fall together. So I think another thing about mentors for people is, in order to get into the right arena with the right people, first you have to kind of become part of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, so start reading, start following them, and then
Yeah.
eventually you become like them, and then you can attract that. And then
You
it
also have a common
skyrockets from
ground
there.
too. You have
Yeah.
a common ground with which to refer to things. So, it's not just like, oh yeah, I think the same way about this thing. But when you throw out a specific nugget
Oh, I know.
about, hey, when I read that thing that time, or like, oh, I noticed that you had mentioned Abraham Hicks and that session that they did about, manifesting or gratitude or whatever, and you
Yep.
can throw a little specific nugget out there, it's even more relatable because it's not like, you're not just saying,
Yeah,
I like
it's like
this person
almost
to
like if
say
you grew
it.
up in the same town.
Yeah.
It's like you have common ground
Something
to
in
build
common.
rapport
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
there.
Well, like we were talking about the way we feel. I feel sufficiently closer to you.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I know exactly how you feel in certain
Yeah, you
situations.
get
We
it.
share that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We share that. That's something that a lot of people don't get.
So I have written down here too. I had mentors, heroes, childhood challenges, and I think that's a good segue with what you just said because all of us grew up with a single mother.
Yep.
And you two both had grandparents in the picture that,
Still,
that raised
my
you.
grandmother's still in the picture.
I do think that the adversity that we go through, especially emotional adversity, is what the resistance builds emotional muscle. So your adversity is your advantage in the long sense.
Yes.
Darren Hardy, do you know who that is?
No.
Okay. So I should have anticipated that because Darren Hardy wouldn't resonate with, he doesn't resonate with the feminine energy at all. He's just straight masculine. But he says your adversity is your advantage because it helps you develop the emotional muscle that can let you go do extraordinary things that ordinary people just simply
And we were
cannot,
talking about this the other
cannot
day.
do. Yeah, because if you and I go to the gym, we're only lifting 10 pounds like I was with those kids the other day, and we never upped the ante
Right.
from the 10 pounds. You always say if you want a major league life, you need to have major league problems and overcome them, right? So that's because you're building muscle, you're growing. Adversity is how we grow. We know that. So childhood challenges. We all grew up with single mothers. Do you think that that's part of the rapport as well? Because when we pull back the curtain and I learn how into self-education you are, and then you two connecting on the fact that you both have fearing of judgment and all that, and then I start to connect these dots and I'm like, oh, wow.
But imagine if everybody had, like, I bet you if you put 10 people in the room, 5 of the people have something like this.
For sure.
They just
Of
don't talk
course.
about it.
Right.
But would they be in the same room?
Anyway.
Oh, okay.
To discuss it in the first place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like what would be the common denominator that would bring them there?
Right.
I always say common denominator. I love that you said that. Beautiful thing. So do you, I guess, how do I form that into a question? It just said childhood challenges. What about your childhood in particular, if you could go back in time and reflect for a second, helped make you a stronger version of you? And if you don't want to share, only share things that you want, obviously.
I don't know that there was anything that,
Like, for example, having a single parent,
right.
a mother and father in the same human.
I never wanted for anything. So
Okay.
I can't say that my growing up that I ever lacked anything.
Okay.
I had a single mom. Yes. My mom is still very much involved in my life. I talk to her every single day. She
Hi,
called when you
Mom.
guys were setting up. Hi, Mom.
Yeah.
She worked her ass off to provide for me and get me into a good school system.
And you clearly have a great relationship with her. You talk
Absolutely.
about her on the show
I do.
yesterday about how she still calls you up and says,
Oh, yeah.
she coaches you still.
She does,
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
without a doubt. And I've learned, if there's anything I've learned in my 40.5 years on this planet, it's that my mother is always right. I don't want to admit it, but she has always been right. Whether it's about the guy I liked in high school, or the decision I made, I'm like, and I'll fight her on
It took
it.
you 40 damn years to
I'll
realize.
fight her on it tooth and nail.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'll be like, yeah, by the way, you were
So that's
right
another
about
huge
that thing.
mentor for you then.
Huge. Oh, my mom is like ridiculous because she, my mom is very responsible. She is all about personal responsibility. So anytime
it.
I try to give an excuse, like
Right.
she,
As most single parents are.
Right.
A lot, some, yeah.
and, she'll, when I try to explain the social anxiety thing, she'll be like, why didn't you move the thing about did you call the such and such yet? Did you call, we like with this renovation, we have a few little loose ends to tie up with my electrician.
Yep.
She's like, did you call them yet? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, can you just, next time you talk to them, can you maybe like ask? She's like, just call them. It's not a big deal. And I'm like, yeah, but you know what? I have a hard time making phone calls about stuff because of the anxiety and da-da-da. And she's like, back in my day,
Right.
our focus was to make enough money at age 18 to move out of grandma and grandpa's apartment where 3 sisters shared a room, and we didn't have to worry about it. And I'm like, okay, Mom, it's not 1957.
Uphill in the snow to school every day.
My mom's priority has always been me, and it still continues to be me. You know, she does so much for me, and I'm very, very privileged in that sense. I know that because I know a lot of people who don't have great relationships with their family. They do, you know, the reason why my mom and my grandparents, I grew up in East Boston in a 3-family house. Not to say anything that there's bad about growing up in East Boston, but my mom wanted me in a better school system. So she and my grandparents pulled together to buy this house that we're sitting in right now in Swampscott.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Legacy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that I could have access to a better education. You know, I went to Catholic school before we moved to Swampscott.
Which has paid off, by the way.
Thank
so
you.
educated.
Thank you.
My goodness.
Not so much in my mother will argue with that on college. I was never ready to, you know, I think it took me until I was about 30, 32 years old to really appreciate learning and be disciplined enough to handle it. I still lack discipline in a lot of areas in my life. And
Which
I
you admitted
admit
at the very beginning
right.
of this, that's the first step to getting it.
Right. But when I first went to college, my first year I went away to school in New York. I was not ready for that because my mom was always over me. Being like, did you do that assignment? Did you get this thing done?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yep.
So when I went, I was like, woohoo, I'm free.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I failed out. I failed right out after 2 semesters.
That
so
happens
she was like,
to a lot of kids.
I'm pulling the plug on that experiment.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've always been very lucky and very privileged in that I've never wanted for anything. You know, I never, you know, didn't have a nice home. I never didn't have food or heat or a car or access to things. You know, my mom worked for the airlines. She was a single mom. She still took me to Disney every single year when I was little. There's so many kids that have not and may never experience that.
Right.
You know, and
So
I'm very grateful for that. You know,
awesome.
I don't overlook. There were times in my life where I was probably expected certain things because that's how I grew up. But I'm in a position now where that's why I want to help people because I know not everyone was as lucky to have those things.
Those opportunities.
There are certainly people that are way more fortunate than me, but I don't need that life. I don't need a $20 million, you know, 20,000 square foot house because for me that's a little much.
But that perspective all comes from gratefulness.
Absolutely.
All of that is created from gratefulness.
Absolutely. And it's like you know, there are certain things that I could have or could have access to, but they're not for me. You know, it's not something that I would want in my life because it's too much. You know, I had years worth of problem where I had, you know, for better lack of a term, a shopping addiction because I was filling an emotional void. You know, whether it be relationship or life or whatever it was, I didn't feel adequate about certain things. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go to Home Goods and buy all these new plates and dinner napkins and and then when I have a dinner party someday, because I've ever had a freaking dinner party, it'll look nice and I'll have this nice setup. And it's like I finally got to the point where I realized objects are not fulfilling.
Yes.
You know, money is everything. It does help you. It helps you get experiences.
It's a dopamine hit rather than the fulfillment.
It is. And I would always have buyer's remorse. And it's like I would buy thousands of dollars worth of beauty products and clothes that I didn't fit into because I would be a size 10 at that time. But I was like, well, I'm not going to not want to wear this when I'm a size 2 finally, when I finally start working out and eating well. So I'm going to buy it in a size 2. So I probably have $20,000 worth of clothes downstairs that I can't fit into still to this day.
You're probably resonating with so many other young girls out
and
there.
And it's like, you know, people say set a goal for yourself and like hang up that bikini, you know, so you have a visual goal. But
you don't need 100 of them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. A whole shoe closet.
Just one.
True.
Yeah.
But for me, I was looking to create, I think, the idea of this perfect life. And like, you know, if I have these nice dish towels and this nice couch and this nice thing, now I look more for quality over quantity, you know, not only in personal relationships, but also in objects. Like, hey, you know, I really want a DSLR camera. So I'm going to research the hell out of it and buy the best one that I can afford that works for my needs. Like, I don't want to spend $10,000 on a piece of equipment that isn't functional for me.
Oh, yeah.
Because people do that all the time. They'll go buy
like you always say with fitness advice, you do what you're actually going to do.
I can tell you how to get
start
fit.
there.
If you're not going to do it, it doesn't matter.
matter.
I'll tell you, then just do what you're going to do.
Right.
Yeah, to start.
And
then build on that.
Yeah.
You could buy this fancy equipment with all these bells and whistles. You know, you could buy this $2,000 espresso maker for your counter. But if you're going to go to Dunks every day and get nice coffee, you're not going to use that.
Treadmill, the towel rack.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Like, you know, you're going to spend $5,000 on a Woodway because you used it once at Equinox and you're like, that's a pretty cool experience. And you never use it. It's a waste of money, space, time, and everything else.
Especially when it comes to debt and the college that you mentioned and people going into a lot of debt before they find their passions and being pigeonholed financially and not able to chase their dreams. You're going to love the minimalist, by the way. And the whole premise, and this is a quote that I always used to say, the things that we own end up owning us. When I went into corporate America and I was only focused on wealth creation, even though I was miserable, for me, my highest value in life is freedom. I want to be bound by nothing. And a lot of people are like, oh, commitment issues. No. I want to be bound by nothing in a sense of I want the freedom to chase my passions every day, to add value in the way I think is best for the world, and to be mission driven. And for me, when I was 80 grand in debt after school, and I was very privileged to be able to go to that school, my mom helped me so much with it. It was a $250,000 education, literally. And I paid off 80 grand worth of debt in 1 year. I did nothing but work and drink, unfortunately. Do not do that.
It got you through.
Yeah, Jesus. But the things that we own end up owning us. And now to a bigger extent than ever before because credit card debt and the 17% year over year interest rate, all that stuff. So what the minimalist thing is trying to say is, I don't want to butcher this quote, but the quote is so profound, and I literally live by it now. Value people and use things because the opposite never works.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of people use people and value things. But things will never make you happy.
No.
People will. Connecting will.
Right.
And you can
Adding
never
value
connect
will.
with people if you have too many things, because your whole life, and this is what I've experienced over the last probably 10 years, and I've finally been able to cut it down over the last 2 years, you're always dealing with your stuff.
Yeah, right.
So I would come home to a house full of stuff, and like, you know, I've moved probably 7 times in the last 8 years.
Yep.
Moving the same stuff, never unpacking it.
Yep.
Always having to move this over here and dust this and clean this and do this, and I was owned by my stuff because I didn't have time to say, all right, I just got done with work and I got home. Now I can sit down and watch a YouTube video or cook something or learn a skill. It was like, no, I have to spend the entire day sorting through boxes and putting stuff
and
away.
taking care of my stuff. Like if you have a yacht down in Newport, you got to go clean it. Unless you pay someone to do that, and you can literally buy time.
All right, so we're running out of time. Last question.
Yes.
I'm stealing Alan's question. If you want to do something about it, I'll see you outside.
Bring it. Go practice falling down.
What would 40-and-a-half-year-old Danielle tell 20-year-old Danielle?
I would tell her to worry less about what people think of her and take the risks and do the things that she wants to do. Because all the things I'm doing now is all stuff I always wanted to do.
Right.
When I was in high school, I was involved in TV production. And that was my goal. And when I went to college, I wanted to be behind the camera in TV production. I failed out. I came back. I went to school for business and some other things and changed my major like 5 different times because I thought your degree had to be in what you were going to wind up doing, which honestly, really, unless it's a super technical thing, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes it's just the piece of paper that you need to get the foot in the door. But I would tell her...
Or the check mark.
Yeah, exactly, right. I would tell her not to worry about... Because all the people that I worried about, their impressions, I'm not involved with those people. And I look at where they are in their lives now and I'm like, wow... They're not doing anything with themselves. So why did I care so much what that person thought of me? And that even goes back to like grade school, high school, and elementary school, like people that I was so worried about impressing. I look at their lives now and I'm like, why the hell did I care what that person thought? Because it stopped me from doing something that could have potentially been like I have a great career. I have a great life right now.
For sure.
What if it could have been even bigger if I had just taken a couple of risks back then and then continued to take risks and build upon them?
And those people aren't in your life because they weren't going to be anyway.
So why do I care what they thought
That's
of
the
me?
number one regret of the dying. The top 5 regrets of the dying. It's I wish I lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. It's huge.
And which I feel like we're all doing more and more
of that.
We're practicing it. We're preaching it. We're living it. But we got to consistently do it. And as we consistently do it, we will see more gains from it. And it'll be easier to do. But the lesson is just fucking start. And if you woke up in water, you'd learn how to swim.
True.
Fact.
You would have no choice. Like you said earlier, when you
do
don't have a choice, you have to do it. Don't give yourself the choice. If you want to lose the fucking weight, lose the weight. Just make yourself do it.
Well, the quickest way to get ahead is to get started.
Yes.
And then just
the only way to get
keep
ahead.
upping the ante.
The quickest and only.
This conversation has been a dream come true for both of us.
Absolutely.
For
I'm
sure.
so glad. I loved it. This is awesome.
And in a weird way for you as well, because you've always wanted to be behind camera.
I know. So there you go.
And there you are.
Well,
love it.
Ladies and gents, we, as always, are greatly appreciative for you listening to us. Danielle, huge thank you for, number one, allowing us into your home.
Yeah, right.
And letting us set all this up.
Strangers.
And,
hey guys.
so we're greatly appreciative, and I think tons of people are going to take value from this. So I'm so happy and so grateful.
Glad.
Thank you so much.
Do you have anything you want to plug before we leave?
No, just follow me on the random social medias. Danielle Murr, you can just search me anywhere. And if you're thinking about doing something this week, just do it. That's all I can say. Is just do it.
Just do it, except not Nike, though.
Yeah,
You know what? But if that's your thing and you love Nike, I'm not going to hold it against you. That's just my own little personal branding decision.
They took just do it.
I'm just teasing. Yeah. All right, ladies and gents, we're going to sign off. I hope you have yourself a great weekend, and we will talk to you
Stay fit
later.